Nintendo, a quick-loading cartridge system with over 60 of the hottest titles ever. Games like Batman, a life-and-death struggle to end the evil Joker's reign of terror and save Gotham City. Games like Super Mario Brothers, a battle to rescue the Mushroom Princess from the evil Koopa Turtles. Go for the joystick for extra control, or go to infrared for remote control. The hottest games are on Nintendo, the world's #1 game system.
You're listening to M.T.V.B. Podcast. Movies, TV, video and board games. This show may contain swearing.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the M.T.V.B. podcast, the podcast that talks about my 4 favorite subjects. That's movies,
television,
video games, and board games. I'm your host, Anthony, as well as most people know me as the Ant-Man, and welcome. This week's episode, we are continuing our series of video games, our favorite video games from very specific consoles. This console this week will be the NES, or otherwise the Nintendo Entertainment System. I'm joined around the table a bunch of guys that love to talk about NES games. First off, around the table is the man with the 2 lists. He's back for season 7. How are you, sir?
I am absolutely fine, Ant-Man. How are you?
I'm very good. Very good to have you back for season 7, mate.
Thank you for welcoming me.
Thank you, mate. And of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the games master himself, Wayne from Board Stupid. How are you, sir?
I'm real good. That's still the best intro anyone ever gives me. And also, on a side note, you literally, I think, have the best intro music in podcasts.
Oh, really?
Every time I go on this show, I put my headphones on, I'm grooving away, and then you suddenly start speaking. I'm like, oh shit. Video games, or whatever I have to say.
Amazing. Guys, have me back, sir. Thank you.
Pleasure. Love being here.
Obviously, you're from Board Stupid, so please tell the people about your podcast. Give it a little plug for us, please.
Absolutely. We are Board Stupid. We're the nerds that talk about things we love that are worth geeking out over, and you can find us anywhere you can find your favourite podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube, where you'll find all of our industry content. We like to do lots of interviews with creators when we go to conventions, etc., etc. And you can also find other things like reviews and opinion, etc. And you'll find our We Played series, which is our most common series, all about board games, on your favourite podcast network.
Nice. Look forward to that, mate. And we've just come back from Birmingham, haven't we? So
we have. I say just come back. UKG 2023. It was very good. I'm planning a little trip to Spiel if I can get over there. And we picked up a bunch of great games, man.
Great content as well for your channel as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. We got some great interviews out there. It was fabulous, and you should certainly check that out. Interviews with stuff that isn't out yet, stuff that's coming up. One of our highlights out there was probably Joyride by Rebellion Unplugged, and they've just launched their Kickstarter as of time of recording, basically today. So,
yes, it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Super exciting. So go and check that out.
Fantastic stuff. Guys, NES games, Nintendo Entertainment System games.
Oh, yeah,
How was this list for you?
Ooh, how would you go?
Yes, being ancient, it was easy, but as I was explaining earlier, it was difficult as well, because you're thinking back 30 years to games that you played when you were a younger man. It was fun. It was, as always, I enjoy putting these lists plural together. So we shall see. We shall see what.
But of course, you're known as the man with 2 lists. So what are the 2 lists divided as? Obviously, your favourite, or
I shall open up my brochure. This week I've divided them into the classic list and the obscure list. So the classic list is games that I would gravitate towards, and I think everybody would know by name. The obscure list is, again, games that I chose to play. Probably nobody has ever heard of.
Ooh. Okay. So the score's not the actual top 5, that's just a hidden gem sort of thing.
The classic list is the top 5, and then, call it the hidden gems. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Wayne?
Well, I found it actually relatively straightforward, this list. Mostly because I have a very clear memory of the things I really enjoyed when I was playing on NES. I was very young. And I think and those things really stick out. And when I started to read about them and I started to see a few videos of them, they really brought the nostalgia right to the floor. And the real bittersweet feeling of my gut, which is, I'm real old. I wish I could go back to those times. But I actually found the list relatively straightforward. It was much simpler than the PlayStation list, which was such a formative experience for me, growing up, becoming your own person. Back when I was a kid, things were simpler. I got what my parents would buy me, and that was it. And I play it, and I enjoy it. And it was great. So relatively straightforward.
Okay,
mine was easy. If it was on the back of a comic book.
That was it, mate. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, because they used to advertise that, didn't they?
They certainly did.
Game Boy stuff as well.
They certainly did.
All right, so let's do a few questions before we do our top 5s, obviously. First off, your history with the console. Was it the first one you ever bought? Was it like something you was really eager for as a child? Or how do I put this? The one you got, or the one, your friends got before you did sort of thing. Was it ever the case of that with you guys at all? Or
No, because I think I had I want to say it was a Commodore 64.
Same, right? Yeah. That was my first one.
That was my first console. That's old.
Yeah.
That's a second generation console.
That was cassette tapes, wasn't it?
That was.
Yeah.
I used to make a funny noise and stuff, and you'd have to rewind it, and then that's right.
That's
with
it.
the cassette tapes, and you had like games like Barbarian and shit.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. So exactly. So I had all that, and then but I think I got that as the NES was out. So I was like, this is shit. All my friends have got NES. But then eventually we got a NES, and me and my brother played the hell out of it. Like we hammered it, mate. I mean, who wouldn't? It was such a classic console, and like that in the mid to late 80s was a revolution, an absolute revolution in console gaming. I mean, there's a whole thing. I don't know if you're going to talk about it, but it literally brought the video game industry back from the death.
Yeah.
It completely changed the industry. I mean, there was literally a video game crash in 1983 due to the amount of shovelware and shit games and terrible consoles.
That was with all the Atari stuff, was it? Or
more than that, yeah.
So name the one game that brought the whole industry to a downfall.
Yeah, it was E.T.
Yes.
That's right.
The
it was
scariest movie of all time.
Yes, mate. But yeah, you're right. It was just like that clusterfuck of a video game. Like it was just knockoff after knockoff, and like every company and his mate brought out a console, and they were shit. And they were just packed with crap games, and they were overpriced, and people got totally turned off the industry to the point where it completely crashed, and the industry almost didn't exist in 1983. And then the NES came out.
No, I'm glad you brought it up because I wasn't going to mention it. I'm glad you did. Thank you for that.
Yes, it basically brought it back from the brink. So it was a revolution.
Yeah.
And it felt like it when I was playing it as a kid. Yeah, sorry, Howard, you about your history with it?
No, not at all. I mean, we... For what we had quite a conservative family, but my dad was always very on board with the next big thing. Yeah. And I grew up in a household with two older sisters, and there was a little bit of a divide, but they were quite cool. So we always had a computer. Now, I started off, so you guys said about the Commodore, I was an Amstrad guy.
Traitor!
CPC 464. We did the adaptator. But then we sort of advanced, as it were, inverted commas, to the Atari 2600 with the nice wood paneling veneer.
It was.
So we were kind of responsible for bringing that whole industry to a crash, really, by getting on board with that. But Wayne's absolutely correct. There's nothing I can add to that, really. As soon as the NES hit the market, it just absolutely transformed everything we think about today when it comes to modern gaming. The branding was correct, the look of it was right, the feel, the characters. I think
even just like Nintendo putting a certain level of quality on everything, right?
Yeah,
like there was a minimum standard that you had to meet in order to
get the stamp of approval, wasn't it? Yeah.
Produce for Nintendo.
But their minimum standard was high.
It was high. You're correct. Yeah, quite right. It was, and they were obsessed with making games that reflected what you would expect the game to be, as opposed to making all of these massive promises and then not delivering on them. So it was a very different approach that Nintendo took.
It was.
Yeah. It's good.
Nice. The Nintendo had, obviously, Howard, you've got your own top 5 of classics here. Nintendo also had its own games as well as its own lineup from other games, such as based on movies or toys or TV shows, for example. Were you guys ever attracted to that for the Nintendo at all, or?
Oh, you mean like games that were released on the back of a movie?
Yeah, so
like
something
IP
like Dick
games.
Tracy or The Terminator or stuff like that, those sort of movies.
Yeah, none make my list, but in my honourable mentions there are a couple, and there'll be a few standout ones that I think people around this table will go yes, and the listeners will as well. No, not instantly. That was something I think I kind of got on board with later as I got older. You'd watch the films and you'd be like, yeah, I want more of that. So let's get the game, or let's read the book, or let's get the comic book or whatever. So not for this list.
Okay,
for another time, definitely.
No. There were a couple of IP games that I thought were quite interesting.
Okay.
One of them may or may not be on my list, so I won't go too far there. But that again was something that Nintendo did quite well, was take IPs and make good games out of them, or take
definitely.
licenses and use them in games in an interesting way, which we'll also discover during my list.
Okay.
So where they're not, where they're not just taking an IP and then just knocking out, something. They are taking the license of the likeness or person or film or whatever and doing something interesting or good with it. I would say not directly, and being so young, it wouldn't be something I was consciously doing. Right, so it would be something that I might have expressed an interest in, but it mostly would have been whatever my parents allowed me
to
play. Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Kind of going back to your history with the console, was it a console that you was aware of certain games? What was the reason for you wanting this beast of a console? Was it because just you wanted to join the rest of your gang, or was it because you had a Commodore or an Amstrad and wanted to upgrade? Without spoiling the top 5s, obviously, but for me, for example, I kind of wanted it to join the rest of the group because all my other friends had it before me. I was always the last to have updated consoles from some SNES, NES, Mega Drive, whatnot. Everyone had it before I did.
I feel sad for Tiny Anthony.
I know. I was like, mine runs on a tape, and you've got a cartridge which loads your games instantly. I've got to wait an hour. Did you guys ever have that sort of thing at all, or?
No, I must confess, I wasn't. Again, my father was one of these people. He would just for Christmas turn up with the thing that you wanted, and whether you knew it or not. And I was very, very lucky as a child, and to this day, I just think, I can look back and think I was a very lucky kid. Don't get me wrong, I wanted that console,
sure,
but we didn't. Me and my sisters, we didn't do it to join in, or it was for a particular game or a particular character or anything like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, everybody knew Super Mario.
Yes, yeah.
Everybody knew him. And he
mascot for Nintendo, wasn't it?
Yeah. So. And he was the big thing. And when Sega came along, it's the same for Sonic and so on and so on and so on. But no. I was one of the very small element out there who got it as a Christmas present. And,
nice.
Yeah. So I was that kid.
He was that guy who got it for everyone.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think kind of similarly to you, and we got it after everyone else, and I think it was basically just a Christmas present for the family.
Yes. Yeah.
So, for me and my brother to play with and keep out of trouble and just play video games instead. So, that's pretty much it, mate. I mean, it came out in the UK in 1987, right? So if you think about that, I would have been 4 going on 5. Right.
Yep.
So, and I think we got it probably 1990. So I would have been 7 years old or so. 7, 8.
Yeah.
And then, so it in the vague recollection of memory that I had, it probably would have been, having friends talk about it at school, seeing it in magazines,
yes,
comics, and advertised, or in the Argos catalogue, right? In the 80s,
which was like a Bible.
Yeah, right. I mean, that was every household had a big old Argos catalogue. That year's catalogue, right? And so
I miss the catalogues.
Yeah,
Come on, Argos Index, all that stuff.
Family,
Yeah,
every family would have a big old catalogue in the 80s, mate. You flick through it over Christmas, and you point and then circle that and go, what do you want? I like that.
Yes,
yeah,
I remember that.
Thank you very much. More than likely, 90%. That's how it occurred.
Yeah.
In my foggy memory of how we obtained the NES. In sort of probably very late 80s to 1990 or so.
Exactly the same with me. Yeah. Until a certain game come out, which we'll probably talk about later.
We probably will.
We probably will.
We probably will.
Whilst we were kids, though, we didn't actually. Oh, I don't know if yourself realised, but Nintendo was at war with Sega with the Master System.
Yes.
Was you aware that the Master System ever existed, or was you just too invested in your Nintendo that there was actual war going on at the same time?
Yes, because I had friends that had that too. The
Oh, really?
System, so the Master System. I don't think I had the Master System. I think I'll have to. Well, my mum probably wouldn't know, but I don't think I had the. But I definitely played Master System games.
Sure.
I remember very clearly playing Alex the Kid.
Yes.
So I know that game. So
that's probably the one that came with the console.
It did. Yeah, it was built in. And as a matter of fact, the Master System outsold the NES by the NES by bucket loads in this country.
Really?
It sold, it did far better. So for a number of reasons, I think by the time it got to the UK, which was I think one of the later markets that it was released in, it was later than the US, later than a lot of mainland Europe.
Right.
And by that point, I think the Master System had already penetrated the market, and I think Sega's marketing was slightly more, I suppose, adult focused. Not even adult,
yes,
young person focused.
Yeah,
right.
Young going into that teenage sort of
exactly.
thing. Yeah.
And even before the Mega Drive, it was kind of like that. Even with because the consoles were black, and they had more. They had a less strict approach to family control, unlike Nintendo of America and Nintendo Europe, who put a real big circle around anything that was in any way bloody or violent and said no. So in Nintendo of Japan, they didn't really give a fuck. But Nintendo America and in Europe, they were like, no, we're not going to do any of that. We're going to market it strictly towards kids and families because that's how we're going to penetrate the market. And I think that's partly why there was a difference in sort of sales amounts. I mean, overall, the NES did very well worldwide, especially in America.
Yeah.
Huge in the US, huge in Japan. But specifically in the UK, the Master System did better.
Oh, wow. Okay. I did not know that. I'm so glad he's on these episodes.
So you bring me on the show.
It's literally why I bring him on. It's like I write these episodes and I put specific facts, and this guy has the encyclopedia of this shit. I'm so glad he's here.
Interestingly enough as well, I mean, the launch bundle in the UK was about £179 at the time.
Was this for the Master System or the Nintendo?
No, this is for the Nintendo, which when you account for inflation is £490.
Damn.
In today's money,
Yeah.
can you? So I
now I know why my
parents. My parents didn't want to buy that on launch.
Yeah.
On launch, there was no fucking way.
No.
My mum might have gone, "Oh yeah, we'll get that for you." No. I was always going to get that 3 years later when it was half the price.
Yeah,
because there was no way on launch.
When the next console's coming out.
Yes, mate, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah. So. I kind of waffled a lot there. But I was aware of the console war only in as much as friends had certain consoles, and I think the Master System was slightly more ubiquitous.
Yes, more adult and Torio games, wasn't it as well? Yeah,
I can't really add to that. That educated even a nerd.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on.
Just to add to what Wayne was saying, yes, I had friends who had Master Systems and NESs, and you were one or the other.
Yeah,
and like yourself, I played Master System games and came back home and played me NES games. So that's as far as it went for me. So it was more like a friend rivalry thing. Well, you're on that side. You're either with us or against us, basically.
Exactly, because I've got your Sonic on your Master System, or you've got your Mario on your NES.
Yeah, that's what it boiled down to.
Yeah, basically,
I mean, I'll be honest, I never knew anything about that console. We used to have a little rental store where I used to live before I moved to Crawley, and it had this massive poster of the Master System case for Golden Axe. And I was like, what the hell is this? This is not Nintendo. So I walked in and it's like, oh, it's from this system. It's been around, slightly longer than the NES. I'm like, what?
What is this?
What is this?
It's a whole other world.
Mine absolutely blown for me.
Oh, really? So you weren't exposed at all?
No, not at all. Not at all. Because, like I said, all my friends were NES guys. That was the thing at the time. But then this And
Yes,
this
mate.
Master System was,
And when you're a
underground,
kid-
if you will, for a...
When you're a kid, it's not like you're going out buying other consoles.
No,
You know what I mean?
this is it.
You
No.
get what you get, and if your friend's parents got them those, then that's all you see.
No, absolutely, yeah. Because I didn't really start getting the magazines till I was a little bit older, when certain games needed players' guides and stuff
Yes,
like that.
mate.
That's when I didn't. But yeah, so
No,
the fact that it was like, oh my
mate.
goodness, yeah, no internet, nothing. It's crazy.
Crazy.
Back in the dark ages.
It is, isn't it?
Mate, back in, yeah.
So, final question for the top 5 guys: as you're all gamers yourselves, would you say that the NES was a big help for you becoming the gamers you are today? I know, for example, Wayne, you're more of a PS1 guy, sort of thing. But
Yes.
did this pave the way for you to be the gamer you became, or
Absolutely, it did.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always loved video games. Like from that moment onwards. I mean, the Commodore 64, fine.
Yeah.
But it didn't really.
just a little stepping stone?
Yeah, it didn't really spark my imagination like the NES did, and I think that's the foundational thing that I remember it for, which was making my imagination work.
Yes.
And as a kid, really enjoying the games and making, immersing me in the worlds, and and really feeling a part of it, as weird as it is. And they would do things like football games that were really good, and action games and adventure games that were really exciting and interesting, and like with big interesting characters that were very memorable, and something you could that I still remember very fondly today. So it absolutely set me on the path. I mean, can you imagine, right, if I went from the Commodore 64 and to some shit console, I probably would have been turned off of video games and possibly games full stop.
Yeah,
I'd probably credit it with my love of board gaming as well, mate. It's all mechanisms, so but I love it.
Nice.
Love it.
Fantastic.
I think the plug and play aspect of it as well. Just being able to put this game in, and there it is, bang, on the screen. And you could just start mashing those buttons away. It's very user friendly. I think that for me, that was the main thing. Again, like everybody around this table, we had a PC, ancient PC that we had to load the tapes, and this was a revolution. For me, I don't know. Yeah, the NES was kind of like, it opened the door, but under confession, I would say it was probably the SNES that really
spiked up.
But absolutely,
I'd be the same, Howard. I think the SNES was like the one.
Oh,
right? That was like, for sure.
Sure. It was NES on NOS,
Yeah, that's right. It was NES on crack. It was like super.
It was super.
It was super. It was super. The NES was amazing, and definitely like a formational memory for me that helped kickstart my love of video games, and then going into the SNES, which basically put the rubber stamp on it. And I didn't need anything else from it. It doesn't matter what released when. I was going to find something, But yeah, quite right, Howard. But yeah, it's a fascinating console, mate. I've got a couple of interesting notes.
Go for it.
Can I just
Please.
chuck some stuff?
Please, yeah.
But I'm sure your listeners will know that the NES was slightly different to the Famicom, which was released in Japan. So that was the original.
So that was the Japanese version of it.
The Japanese console, and that was released in the year of our wane, 1983.
Good year of our Lord.
Yeah, the year of our wane, 1983. Which, if you think about it, with the NES being released in the UK in '87, that's a long old time, mate. Can you imagine these days a 4-year release gap between markets?
Imports.
Between markets?
So many imports.
No, it's like these days it's simultaneous release, or like a couple of months, right? 4 years.
Everyone has to have it at the same time now, yeah.
It's like VHS releases, wasn't it? America would get it that year, and then the UK would get it a year and a half later.
Yeah, but just cinema releases were a 6-month gap, weren't they?
Yeah.
Interesting you talk about VHS. Okay. Let me segue off of that little thing. This is an interesting little factoid. You know how the Famicom was a top-loading machine?
Correct,
like the SNES would become. Right? They redesigned it for the American market, released in 1985, so 2 years before it became into Europe. The same as the PAL version, that front-loading type machine that we're all familiar with.
Yeah.
Because it replicated VHSs, which were very popular in that market.
Of course.
Right.
So it felt more like a general system you could put under your telly that families would just put there, as if it was a VHS. And so that was how it was
Well, that makes a
designed.
lot of sense now.
It does,
yeah.
When you think about it, VHS, in it goes, and that's why they did it that way.
Yeah.
Even though it was actually a design flaw, because I'm sure we all remember blowing on the fucking cartridges and like polishing the fucking thing.
Kids will never know that these days, will they?
No, because when you front loaded it like that, the contacts bent.
Yes,
right.
And
because the material they had to make it out of in order to make it that way, they'd oxidize easily.
Right,
and so which would make the contacts worse. Whereas opposed to if you had the top loading, you didn't have to have that combination of material and have the contacts bend when you push the thing in that way. You just in it goes and out it comes.
Yeah.
So interesting. That's why they did it, which I think is quite fascinating as a way.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And that's why I was so familiar with it.
It's weird how simple those made it work, though. It was just done.
Although apparently that made everything worse.
No way, did it?
That's right, because what you were doing was adding moisture to the copper, which oxidizes it more, right? So you might blow some dust off it, but over time, you'd make the contacts worse. So, little known thing for anyone that does have like a retro console, don't blow on your console.
Exactly, yeah.
You're literally fucking your console up. So,
I'm going to have to throw that T-shirt away now. It's just got a cassette on the front with blow me underneath.
That's it, yeah.
Don't blow me. Whatever you do. Which is interesting. And also the Famicom had the controllers attached to it.
Ah, okay.
They were fixed to it as a cost-saving mechanism. So they didn't have to have extra ports built in. They just ship it with the two controllers attached. Whereas these days...
Could you imagine going answer the door with your hat still in your hand? And, oh, shit! Over there.
Console coming with you.
That's it, yeah.
But, and one more little thing, and then you can crack on with your podcast.
Please do. Please keep it coming.
So very interesting as well. It was discontinued in 1995.
Wow.
That thing had an 11-year run.
That even surpassed the NES, the SNES.
It had it overlapped the...
It was 91, 92 for the UK, I think.
That's right, 91, 92. So it overlapped that. So it had that 11-year run, mate. That is a beast of a run.
That's a legacy.
Yeah, it certainly is. And they just kept making them, and people kept buying them in different markets, mate. So phenomenal console, mate. Yeah.
Wow, that is insane. Would you like to throw in anything, Howard?
No, I can't follow that. I'm afraid. Wayne's just made me feel very inadequate.
Right,
then let's crack.
I love it. This is why I love him on there. We'll get you back on for the SNES as well episode, guys, as well.
Please have me on for SNES, mate. I've got loads to say about that.
Fantastic. It's definitely happening.
6-hour podcast.
Yes, mate. Strap in, lads.
Strap in, guys. Let's go for the top fives.
It's time for a top five.
Right, so do you have the number of games on your facts at all, by any chance?
The number of games released for the SNES?
Yeah, the NES, yes.
No, I don't. I could have got that factoid, but I didn't get that factoid.
So that's the only fact I got was, so licensed games was 716, but it's well over 1,000 with including unlicensed games.
Yeah,
So, for the record, guys, if we don't mention your games, you should have been on this fucking episode. Number 5!
Number 5.
Right. Obviously, the new thing for Season 7 is we roll the D dice, the Hellfire dice. Whoever gets the highest goes first, okay? So...
Anthony has rolled.
I rolled the copyright side.
What is that? Is that a 1?
Oh, an 8. There we go. I got an 8. Go on, Howard. Roll for it.
Okay.
17. Oh, so Howard's in the lead so far.
Seems likely. That's also an 8. So
it's an 8. So Howard, off you go, sir. Clockwise from you.
Okay. Gents, what would you like first? Classic or obscure?
Let's do the obscure, so then we can leave the last bit for your actual number 5.
Okay. Well, I have to get my notes out here.
Yeah, go for it.
Because, getting old and grey, I can't really. Obscure. So, 1991, they released Pirates. And I believe it went under the name of Sid Meier's Pirates.
That is familiar.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds.
Yeah, he was producing games of this ilk at the time, and they were very popular. And then they started releasing them under the gent's own name. Mm-hmm. I knew it as Pirates. An open world map strategy type game, where you would start life as a privateer. Mm-hmm. You'd receive a letter of marque from some empire around, let's say, the 15th, 16th century. So that would be the Spanish Empire, Dutch Republic, the Kingdom of England, or the French colonial empire. And that was it, really. You'd be a pirate. You'd be in the employ of one of these constituent parts of the world map. And then you just go and plunder to your heart's delight. Put together a crew, visit towns on any port in a storm and just pillage to you.
It sounds like a game you need a memory card for.
Well, being an open-ended sort of map crawler, there was no ending to it really.
Oh, okay.
You just kept going and kept going and kept going. You accumulated loads of loot. I loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a little bit different because at the time you had your side scrollers, your platform games, but yeah, I think this kind of, I mean, Wayne and yourself would appreciate this being RPG guys.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of bought into that part of me.
Nice.
That you could get a little bit from this game. It was a little bit RPG, a little bit board gamey. So you'd watch your ship sail across the map, and you'd guide it into let's say.
Was you into that pirate thing at that age then? Or?
Oh hell yeah! I mean,
Yeah.
look, don't get me wrong. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm into superhero, science fiction, horror. I love all that sort of thing. But at my heart, I love westerns and pirates.
It's a pirate's
Yeah.
life for you, mate.
It's a pirate's life for me.
Nice.
Indeed, yeah.
And Sid Meier would go on to be releasing legendary games, right?
Indeed. Yep.
Yeah. Do you know what Sid Meier released? The Civilization series.
No way.
Yep.
Okay.
So Sid Meier's Civilization.
Right.
Yeah.
So you
Nice.
got me on that one. Yeah, I didn't know that was his specific brand.
Well, there you go. It shows where he started somewhere and obviously went
Well,
to
of course, yeah.
bigger PC games, obviously.
I assume that's the same Sid Meier.
It must be. It must be. We'll go with it. We'll go with
Yeah.
it. Sid Meier, if you're listening, get back to us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it really. I loved it. It was very straightforward. You'd have little cutscenes with text along the bottom. It was all very black and white, very basic. And I think coming out of living life on an Amstrad into the NES, this was a nice little segue for me.
Nice.
There's nothing else I can say about it really.
No, it's
I
cool.
Love it.
If you've still got a NES, go out and find a copy.
Yeah, and you'll probably see some really formational elements of what Sid Meier does in all of his games. So
Yeah,
it's nice,
and based on what Wayne's just said, I mean, it clearly was one of these games that paved the way for what we now know.
Civ games. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That sort of whole genre.
So the actual number 5, sir, is
Metroid.
Oh, nice.
What a game!
Yeah, Metroid.
End of.
Yeah, end of. There's lots. I think we're all going to come across games on these lists where everybody knows them.
Yeah. So this is the first ever outing for
The
Metroid
first
franchise,
Metroid,
isn't
yeah.
it?
So
Yeah.
Samus Aran, the one of the first female characters that I can remember.
Which no one knew what it was to the end, apparently.
absolutely,
That was the twist ending,
It
wasn't
was,
it? It was like,
yeah.
actually, I'm a chick.
You're a
She
chick.
takes her helmet off and it's Sigourney Weaver.
And it made it a little bit cooler.
Yeah.
So I'll just glance down at my notes. Another open-ended world game. I think the fascination for me was the level up aspect of it, where you start off with this sort of faint laser beam, and then you just keep leveling up until you had this massive cannon that could just absolutely destroy your enemy. But Mother Brain, I think, was the fascination for me about Metroid. The final boss and the legend of Mother Brain.
Yeah. This is the one where she rolls into like a ball and can go
Yes,
through other
that's
areas
it,
and stuff
yeah.
as well.
Eventually.
Yeah.
But it has a fascinating game design, right? Because not the only way things are locked off to you is through acquiring powers, right?
Yes.
Almost like a Mega Man type thing in such a way where you can only defeat certain things and do certain puzzles if you've got certain powers. And it does that super well, and it's dark and it's grim.
Yeah.
Yes,
and it's
it
like,
is,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? It's got a kind of grim, darky vibe as well. It's super cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it felt more adult in tone than some of the others. Like you were saying, it was very family orientated around
Console, generally, yeah.
But yeah, Metroid. Yeah, it was kind of like your older brother's game.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, Metroid.
Which is
Well framed.
obviously had an impact because it still goes today.
It does,
It's
yeah.
a franchise that people are still begging for. Metroid 4, 5, whatever it is now, sort of thing. So it's weird how that's become such a big franchise for Nintendo. You would never have thought when you first, like you said, because it's like, oh, it's your brother's adult game or something, whatnot, and look where it is today.
Yeah,
It's huge.
Yeah, and the character has endured as well. I mean, you see it in games like Smash Brothers Melee. I mean, Samus is everywhere, and I think this is testament. And there's others on my list as well, but this is testament to, again, and I'll reiterate what Wayne was saying about the creativity behind the output from the brains behind NES.
Yeah.
It wasn't a franchise on a film or a TV series or a comic book. These were original characters in original settings and original games, which is still enjoying today. And I think it's brilliant. And Metroid represents that, I think.
Really creative. It was a first-party release as well, like just Nintendo developing it themselves and making a phenomenal
pure
game.
Nintendo game.
Yeah, and which they continue to do. They're the Nintendo R&D 1 division, I think it was, which was their game development division, and they just smashed out hit after hit.
Yeah.
They also did Mario Kart, and so you know how they did some fucking.
So they got a good track record,
Yeah, absolutely,
boom.
they did. Yeah. Boom, boom, mate. Yeah.
Nice. Anything else on that, sir?
No. I think, like I say, I'll cut that one short because it's Metroid.
Yeah.
The legend is infamous. But thoroughly enjoyable. Big
you fucking non-gamers who are listening, go find out what Metroid is.
You youngsters.
Games Master, number 5.
Number 5 for me is a nostalgic pick, and that's Duck Hunt.
Nice, nice.
So had to be Duck Hunt. So it's a super nostalgic pick for me. So
it is on my list.
Okay, don't clash. Keep it on there.
Okay.
Don't worry.
We're
going to clash, but you'll get your own 2 cents.
Say your bit when it comes. That's all right. Don't worry. I'll keep where it is a secret to.
This was very close to mine. I'll be honest. It was very close to my list.
Released 1987, obviously used the infamous light gun, or the NES Zapper.
Yes.
Right, which was a surprisingly accurate beast.
It was.
Right, that thing fucking slayed me. It was great. That was awesome. But although I remember very, very, very vividly as a kid, 2 inches from the screen.
Cheater! You cheat!
That's how I did it, man. Because I was a kid. I'm like 8 years old.
That game was tough.
It was real hard, man.
It wasn't just ducks. There were discs as well. Wasn't there? Clay pigeon, whatever it is.
2 separate modes in the original version, which was you either picked Duck Hunt, of which ducks would fly by, or you'd have the clay pigeons, which would just ping out at random, and you'd have to shoot those down. And I don't know if you remember, but the Duck Hunt version, you could have a second player control the ducks. Yes. So the second,
No,
you could. So with
no way.
Yeah, so with a controller, you could have your brother, which happened with me, change the trajectory of the ducks to really fuck with you.
I never knew that.
So which is really fun. So as you're trying to shoot them, you're like, son of a bitch. So Duck Hunt was again massively nostalgic. I think it was packed in with the console. I'm pretty sure it was on a 2-for-1.
Yes,
it was. Super Mario Bros.
Super Mario Bros.
I think it was on its own at one point, but then it joined the combo, like you said.
That's right. And they re-released it as well, and it had like a bonus mode and some other stuff. But the edition I remember is very much the basic edition, and just tons and tons of memories, just high scoring battles with my brother in the late 80s, early 90s, and it was phenomenal. Very simple, like very repetitive. Like by today's gaming standards, it's literally just a target practice game.
But for its time was revolutionary.
Because the production was good. I mean, it was bright colours. It had memorable characters. The most memorable character is that smug fucking dog.
Oh, mate, that fucking dog! I wanted to shoot him so much in that game.
You couldn't fucking
piece
shoot
of shit.
him. You couldn't shoot him.
Mate.
Every time he'd come up with his smug fucking face because you'd missed the duck, he'd be like,
he does a
a silly little laugh, and he's like, "You son of a bitch!" Yeah. You'd get your rage on, and really annoying. Anyway, very memorable character. Even like the design was great, very bright colours.
Even the Zapper was, money's worth. It wasn't like some cheap knockoff sort of thing, was it? It was a proper quality built, wasn't it? Yeah,
that was a proper toy, mate. Yeah, mine never failed, mate. I mean, like the console failed before the Zapper did. That thing was solid. Fabulous game. Other stuff, just the laughing dog. Really, just had to shoot. You wanted to shoot him, but you couldn't.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, Games Master will probably tell me otherwise, but I think you could shoot him, and if you did, he popped up and he'd give you one of them, sort of a wagging finger.
Maybe you could
penalise you.
There was a re-release, right? And I don't know if this was the one that I had or if this came later, but there was, and I'm sure someone on the internet will tell me I'm wrong otherwise, where you had bonus stages where ducks would come out, you'd shoot them as quick as can, and occasionally the dog would come out. And if you shot the dog accidentally, the bonus stage would end, and he'd be like the...
that might be it then,
So that might be that. So I think...
like Nedry from Jurassic Park.
I think there was an original... I think that was in the post-release. But that's why. It's a big nostalgic pick for me.
Nice. Good pick, sir. But if everyone knows the answer to that dog thing, comment below, let us know.
Yeah.
Nice pick, sir. My number 5 is going back to the question I said about the movie tie-ins. This is the only one that's in my list, which is the 1989's Batman for the SNES.
Yes. What
for the NES, sorry.
Classic game, mate.
Reason I picked this is because I remember when, obviously, the movie was big when it came out at the time, but all the other video games that came out for it was based on the movie. So Batman would reenact scenes from the film. Whereas this one, created by Sunsoft that did this, it was totally different to what Batman would do. They did their own thing. They've taken little nods from the movie, added it to this game. But what Batman can do was, obviously, he wouldn't just punch people, he'd throw the bangerangs and whatnot. But the big thing about this game was that Batman could ricochet off of walls.
Yes.
And the animation for an 8-bit console was revolutionary for the time. I don't know if you ever remember it at all, but there were scenes where Batman he never had the obviously the rope and glide through in this game. His big thing was the jump off walls and ricochet to avoid certain objects, certain enemies, whatnot. Such a big thing for me. I remember back then I was just like, wow, look at this. How have we come from a Commodore 64 to someone actually full body animating to bounce off walls and attack enemies? You mentioned cutscenes in your video game, how this one had it. Never much like with sound effects. It would just be music with a couple of moving pictures, but you get the gist of what the cutscene was trying to recreate at the time.
Like actual scenes from the film as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, like the Batmobile shooting the wall and it goes underneath it, and Batman jumps out of it and everything.
Probably very much like you guys, coming off the back of Batman, the biggest film of all time at the time.
At the time,
being able to play that on your console.
Exactly,
yes.
And it not being a shit tie-in, which is what killed the industry, right?
Yeah, so, exactly. It wasn't an ET ripoff.
Exactly. It was this was like a good game.
It was a kick-ass game. Like I said, it stood out from the rest because all the others were just kind of copying just to get out in time. The soundtrack for this game's amazing as well. And also, this is nearly 40 years old, this game. I've still never beaten it. The Joker is one of the hardest bosses of all time on this fucking game.
I'm saying I've never completed it.
Never. I've got to him, just never completed it. So I remember spending hours and hours and hours on that game.
You had to traverse to the top of a tower, didn't you?
Correct,
yeah. I think I got there. Could just never get.
So you start with the Acme plant and you work your way upwards, don't you? But do you remember, like I mentioned, the memory card thing? Like you didn't start from where you left off. When you play these games, you go way back to the beginning, and you have to go through it all again. And then when you get to that level, you go. Your mum shouts out, "That's time for dinner!" You know, and it's like, fuck's sake. Do I put this on pause and crack up my parents' energy bill, But yeah, just crazy, man. Good times. Cannot deny that game should be on my list.
But games like that made you an expert at that game.
How 100%, yeah. And it's one of those ones where, again, what's the old saying now? Get good. You learn from, all right, this guy's going to pop up here in a second. You're going to jump in there and do that. Yeah, exactly.
You know what's going to happen.
So yeah, Batman is my number 5. Let's go to the number 4.
Great pick, mate.
Number 4.
Thank you, sir. Right, on to Howard. Back to your obscure number 4, sir.
Right. So obscure number 4 is Deja Vu.
I don't know.
I don't know this one.
No, you're not lying to me when you call it your obscure list. So this is, I don't know.
So this was released in 1990. It's what I can only refer to as one of the original point and clicks for NES. Now, if
there was a point and click for it,
yeah.
Wow.
So you basically you'd manoeuvre your little, as far as I can remember, it was like a pointy hand, and you'd move for different sections of the screen, and it was segmented into what action you could take next. There was a little window for what was actually happening at the time, so your scene. There was a text bar at the bottom, progress on your right. Now, this kind of took me back to the days of when... Did any of you play Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy for any of the Commodores or the Amstrad?
I did not. No, I didn't play any of those adventure games.
I think Lord of the Rings was the same. It was one of those ones where basically a text would come up on the screen. You'd have to answer yes or no. It would lead you on to...
Go north or go south, something,
Yeah. It was like turning a page in a fighting fantasy book. So this felt very much like that for me. So a bit about it. It was basically about a retired boxer turned private eye called Theodore Ace Harding, set in 1940 Chicago. It sounds very much like the plot of a film.
It does, yeah.
On this main respect is that he wakes up in a toilet cubicle in a bar He's lost his memory, doesn't know who he is, doesn't know where he is. There's a body in the office upstairs. He's about to be framed for murder. He now has a limited amount of time to clear his name and find the real killer.
This is an NES game, right?
This is NES.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Yeah, now...
No way.
Yeah, I think because I'm probably slightly older than you lads.
Can't he just jump on some mushrooms or something? And
level up? I liked it because it came out when I think I must have been about 1990. I was 11, going on 12. It was my sort of game,
right?
And again, tying in a little bit more with board gaming and as I just mentioned, fighting fantasy books, which I was very much into at the time. He basically has to collect clues, do his own investigation whilst the police are fighting against him. But his memory is deteriorating as he's going, progressing through this game, and he has to keep taking drugs in order to sort of sustain his memory. Yeah, in fact, now that you mention it, it's very adult in tone.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. And then a couple of years later, out came a film called Memento.
Here we go.
I know the plot of this film. So yeah, kind of tied in.
You
with
reckon
that,
Christopher Nolan's an NES fan?
Oh, very
Deja
possibly.
vu
Well,
fan.
look, I mean, I think we live in a day and age now where you can't create anything new.
Yeah,
true.
And whether subconsciously you've done it or not,
it's all
you're
cyclical,
always,
mate.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you think you've come up with an idea, but it turns out
You're
a comic book in
inspired somewhere.
1950 came up with it or something.
Yeah.
This is it.
So yeah, Deja Vu. Again, a game I would very much encourage anybody.
I need to
go
look
and
this
find.
up. This seems way advanced
it's
for an NES game, but yeah.
Well, I think
Adventure
probably
game.
something that you would appreciate now.
Yes.
With your current interests.
Nice.
But yeah, it was different. I was still mashing buttons with other games. I was still, side scrolling and platform climbing. But yeah, this was different and tied in with what I think I was feeling at the time.
Very
Nice.
I like it, mate.
So your actual number 4 then, sir?
Double Dragon.
Oh, this is going to be an honourable mention for me.
What's
a
game?
Yeah.
Again, mate, that's got to be an honourable mention for me. I mean, I would love to have put that in my list, but I can't, in all good conscience, tell you much about it in terms of memory. But it was
Really?
a
Okay.
phenomenal
The
fucking game,
problem
mate.
is, I think 3 came out on the NES, but I only played the first one, and that was the one that started, especially the opening to that game.
Mate, yeah, it's like
But-
a cinematic opening.
Yeah, go for it. What is it?
Well, I first discovered this so many years ago. I was very much a sports lover, and I used to go to see the local ice hockey team with my father. And in the around the rink where people were puffing around cigarettes, this is how long ago it was.
Yeah, was it?
Was an arcade machine, and at the time it was Double Dragon.
Yeah.
And me and my friends, we just used to pole around this machine. And funny enough, there's others on this list that were played first on this machine.
Okay.
Yeah, and we just mash away to our heart's delight in between.
So it's a side-scroll beat-em-up, isn't it, sort of thing?
So it is what is known as a belt scroller. This is
Okay.
the coin term, but yeah, continuous scrolling. So the characters would have to move with the screen.
Yes.
Yeah, the screen is moving, and you
Yeah,
must
so you
move.
couldn't just stay static. You had to keep moving. And you mentioned Golden Axe. I think Golden Axe was very similar, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that was
it
a
was
belt
stopped to a
scroll
certain
as well.
point, but then we shout go. But then again, you have
And
to
then you'd
move
have
with
to
it. Yes.
Yeah. And characters would disappear on screen, and then you have to face off against the skinheads or the
Like a conveyor
the
belt,
switch-
mate.
Yeah,
a conveyor
makes sense,
belt. Yeah. The characters were Billy Lee and Jimmy.
Billy and Jimmy Lee,
Yeah. Inexplicably, in later games, they became known as Hammer and Spike.
That's stupid.
I think one game they're Bimmy and Jimmy, aren't they? Or something like that, yeah. I don't know if that was a typo though, but
I'm
yeah.
sure there must be some sort of license clash. I mean, I don't know why. They'd face off against the Black Warrior gang, and it was to win back the love of Marion, who had been kidnapped.
She
Billy-
gets beaten the fuck up at the beginning of that game.
She does. Yes, she does.
She probably.
Is that like
she
a...
gets
Proper gut punch, isn't
There's
it?
no
Yeah,
way you
yeah.
get away with that this day.
No,
these days.
no. But this was in a day and age where basically women were seen as just tokens to be fought over. And
Yeah, and you go
Damsels,
save the
yeah.
girl, isn't it?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
Was it like a weird incestuous throuple? Why was she with Billy and Jimmy Lee?
Well, this is interesting. So
That's a
the
question.
backstory says that it was Billy Lee's girlfriend, but at the very end of the game, if you play a 2-player game, Billy Lee and Jimmy would have to fight for the love of Marion.
At the end of it,
Ah,
that's
right,
right,
yeah.
Nice.
So after you defeated all of the bosses, then you'd fight for this girl. I mean, who says she wants?
If
either?
you got that far,
if
that
you
was,
even got
yeah.
that far, yeah. And as an adolescent 8-9-year-old, you think, well, what the hell am I doing this for? Just send in more guys. So,
but you talking about the arcade? Do you remember Nintendo released one, but it was like the 10 choice game?
yes.
And it had like 10
yes.
games of Nintendo on there, but you picked it and whatnot, and then it would have Double Dragon and all that sort of stuff in it, and you would multiple choice it, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That was like pretty cool then. That was back in the days when you could play Double Dragon for 20p a go.
Oh,
Yes,
mate.
mate.
You know?
And if you were that good, you could play for hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, Double Dragon. And you talk about like the Sega Wars. At the time, Streets of Rage came out.
Yeah, which is one of my favourite games of all
Fucking
time.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I must say, as much as I love Double Dragon, I think I love Streets of Rage more.
Streets of Rage is better.
Do you
They
think
did
that
it
Double
just-
Dragon helped
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah,
with the creation of Streets of Rage though?
yeah, it proliferated that whole genre. But yeah, Sega did it better.
They did
As much as I hate to say
better,
it.
mate. But Double Dragon was still legendary.
Oh, it
Oh,
was.
100%, yeah.
I very much remember those games, and it's of that classic side-scrolling, like say, belt style beat 'em up type game.
Yeah.
and they are wicked. I mean, they're just genuinely good. I still think they hold up today, actually, because it's a
I remember
classic
playing
style.
that, and do you ever remember there used to be like a garage door in the background,
Yes,
and it would
mate.
open up, and this big fucking guy would
Yes,
come out
yeah.
of it. I used to shit my pants. I was like,
You
ah!
used to have hands like plates of meat, and you think, "Oh my god, what the hell are we going to do?"
That's it. And you go two play. No, you go first. You go get it first.
But interesting you say about how you played it on arcades first. Nintendo modelled the NES after their arcade console, right? So they tried to make the guts of it as close to that as possible.
It makes sense.
So there's quite a lot of ports that you see from arcade games of the time on the NES.
And I think that's what must make it so successful.
Exactly, because those Nintendo arcade consoles were fucking amazing.
they were,
Yes,
they rocked.
yeah.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
absolutely smashed it. I mean, the NES wasn't quite the same because, mass production, right? You can't quite do it exactly the same. And so you see some differences. There'll be some things on my list, which I'll mention later. But they did a pretty fucking good job to get that in the home.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway.
Nice, man.
yeah,
Double Dragon's a very good choice, sir. Nearly went on my list.
just don't
Is an
watch the
honorable
movie.
mention. Yeah, the 90s one, is it?
Oh
yeah.
mate,
Yeah,
oh,
God.
I feel sick.
Games Master number 4, sir.
Number 4 for me, again, I mean, all of these are nostalgic picks. I'm not going to lie to you and say, I really thought about this and I thought about the critically best games of the time. That would be bullshit
Yeah.
because I was 9. Right, 8, 9 years old, whatever, like at the very oldest, probably when I was playing this stuff. Maybe a little bit older, as 10, 11, as the console grew on, maybe 12. But this one was Nintendo World Cup. Because being a kid, mate, and everyone's into football at school, etc. And Nintendo World Cup was a phenomenal, silly football game. Are you familiar with Nintendo World Cup? Yes or no?
It's not the one where it's over the top, is it?
No, because that was like sensible soccer style.
Right,
This
that's what I'm thinking of. Okay.
was more like a side-on view, and it's because it's a Nintendo-developed game, very much like Nintendo sports games, where everything is hyper-realized and silly, right? Like with their approach of racing games or kart racing, you've got Mario Kart, or their approach at tennis, you've got Mario Tennis, right? And it's all like cartoonified versions of the sport. And Nintendo World Cup was very much that. You'd have your different teams that you would pick against each other, and you would play a game of football. But you'd be playing 6 versus 6. It wouldn't be a full 11 versus 11 game. And they were like squat little chibi characters with square heads, essentially. And there were no sort of rules, I think. There was no fouling, so you could basically go up and headbutt other people. It was incredible. So you basically could either pass, you could shoot, you could tackle, or the tackle is basically just headbutting a dude. Or you could do like a super shot, which was you could do a certain amount of those if you did a certain amount of steps before like reaching goal,
Right.
And that would take the form of like a super powerful shot or like this crazy diving header, and it would make the ball glow, and the ball would like fly into the net. It was amazing, really arcadey, incredible game, like just fucking amazing. Is it ringing any bells?
I've never played it, but it is ringing bells. So when he goes for his kick, his leg sort of shoots up in like a sharp, cartoony sort of swipe.
Yeah, exactly
I do
that.
remember it. Yeah,
Right,
I never
okay.
played it though.
Exactly that. You can give other. You only could like control one character at a time,
Right.
But you can give the other characters a command. So I could give my teammate a command to shoot. So when I pass it, they'd immediately shoot. Or I can give them a command to pass. So when I pass it, they'd immediately pass. Right. It was just really great fun, mate. It was a real Nintendo take on football.
Was it 2-player as well?
It was 2-player
Yeah.
as well, yeah, of course. So and the super shots were different depending on what nationality of team that you pick.
Okay.
So if you were England, the super shot might be like a super powerful kick. If you were Japan, it might be a super
that's kind of good. That's all different. They've all got differences when you pick them.
If it's Germany, it might be like a bicycle kick or something like that.
Different styles.
It was just a fantastic game. I mean, and I've got so many amazing memories of playing that with my brother, over and over and over again. And there were different fields. You'd have an ice field,
wicked,
which I'm pretty sure in my mind changed how far you could tackle. I think
would you slip on the ice?
I think so. I don't know if that's my memory. My childlike creativity, thinking that it was different, or if it was just a palette swap, right? But I'm pretty sure I remember the tackles being longer on the ice, right? Then there was a desert one, and then there was obviously a grass one, which is really, really good. They were just wonderful. You had a tournament mode, so you could take one of the teams against all of the CPU, and you try and get through the entire World Cup, or you just have versus mode, which is just 1 versus 1.
Gotcha.
Which is fantastic. It's just a wonderful game, mate. I mean, from what I remember of it, it is a great formational experience. Again, all of this stuff.
Good childhood memories
really
of it and stuff.
Good, strong childhood memories. Massive, heapfuls of nostalgia. If this sounds in any way familiar to you, just Google Nintendo World Cup, look for images, and look for those little square-headed fellas. And I think it should ring a couple of bells. I'm going to try and get a picture up and quickly show you guys.
This was FIFA before FIFA was out.
I don't know if that rings any bells at all.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So Howard that's exactly the one you're thinking of. I don't know if that rings any bells to you, Sarah. At all.
No, I've not seen
the characterization of the players. They sort of formatted that in other sports games, didn't they?
Exactly. They're super. Again, really characterful, very Nintendo, very cartoony. And I remember there's this one dude here, right? I'm going to show Howard. He's got this stupid fringe. He used to headbutt the shit out of people.
Oh shit!
So I just remember him having the most amazing tackle, mate. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, give him a Glasgow welcome. Yeah, phenomenal game. So my number four is Nintendo World Cup.
Nice pick, sir. Nice bit of nostalgia for you as well.
And it was magic. And I'm sure if my brother's listening, he'd be like, "Oh fuck!"
Amazing, good pick, sir.
Thank you.
My number four is going to be Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Ah, yes. What a pick!
I picked this specifically because, again, living in London when this came out, I went to my cousins who had the console before I did, and he took me to Wandsworth Mall, which had one of the first shops in the UK to rent Nintendo games.
Nice.
And I never knew this was such a thing. This was obviously before Blockbusters and all this sort of stuff came out. So the fact that he was like, oh, I thought we were going to buy a game, but he was like, no, £2.50, we can rent this for a weekend. I was like, my first experience as a child with renting stuff. So this was all oblivious to me. And I was like, what, we can actually take this home and then we give it back? And yeah. So anyway, Mike Tyson's Punch Out, we pop this fucker in, and from the get-go, I just love it straight off. How you're essentially Rocky in a way, where you're trying to train up and fight.
Little Mac.
That's it. Fighting off 10 different characters, all with the stereotypes and all different abilities and all different types of strategy, how they fight and stuff. The little bonus things you do before fights and stuff. Mario is a referee as well. Nice little cameo. Up until you get to Mike Tyson and he just one shots you in one punch. I love the idea. I love the different types of punches. It's such an arcade feel for a small console. And you've got the crowds cheering as well and everything. It's a big remembrance for me, like you just said with your football, how you remember it as a child and a little bit of nostalgia for you. I remember one time Mike Tyson Punch Out had a cheat code, not cheat code, it was a code, so you would get to a certain fighter and if you remembered a password you can go straight back to it, couldn't you? Now I remember my cousin didn't have any paper at the time, so he got a pen and literally wrote it on the console, the password. It was like a 4-digit code, whatever it was, but it was like, that's how dedicated we were to beating this fucker. I was like, we're writing on the console to keep this, keep going sort of thing. But this is, again, we had no player's guide, so you had to really learn how these fighters, if they did a certain thing, they were going to go this way, and then you can uppercut them. So much fun. And then obviously it got re-released they upgraded it for the Super Nintendo. There was a arcade machine where you can actually wear 2 boxing gloves, and they had arcade sticks attached. Remember that?
Yeah.
And you would push up or down, or you'd rotate it round, and you would do it's oh my god, it's such a great standout game for me.
It became a game of its time.
by far.
Do you know, I played this recently on an emulator, and I forgot how fucking difficult it was.
Yes, it's not easy.
I mean, maybe as kids, you just thought, oh yeah, this is absolutely simple. But yeah, now I don't know. I've lost my mojo.
It's like there are still people today trying to learn Mike Tyson's pattern on YouTube. It's ridiculous, or on Twitch, whatever it is now. It's ridiculous how people are trying to still do it nowadays.
Point of order, and in the UK, it was released as just Punch.
It was just Punch Out. You're right. Yes,
because Nintendo lost the license to use Mike Tyson's likeness.
Yes.
In 1989, I think it was. I can't remember. So there was a point where they lost the license, and then in the rest of the territories had to just release it as Punch Out, where Mike Tyson just became Mr. Dream.
That's right.
And Mr. Dream, with same moveset, would beat the shit out of you.
Yeah, so it was still technically him, but just a different name, wasn't it?
I've got lots to talk about.
Oh, okay.
For reasons.
Okay. We'll come back to
Until
that. Until then, we'll move.
But I will talk about Mario as a referee.
Oh, yes,
if
please.
you look very closely at Mario as a referee in Mike Tyson's Punch Out, or Punch Out, as we probably know in this territory, it looks a bit weird.
Yes, it doesn't look just,
because he was drawn by a different artist and managed to get or bypass Nintendo's quality control bit. So they didn't realise it until like kind of late on, and they looked at it and went, that's fine. So it was drawn by someone different.
And from memory, he's got a slightly elongated face.
Yeah, yes, he's kind of weird looking. So yeah, it was,
and it's kind of like the red hat, but it's not the red hat that he wears. But it's got the same mushed, what isn't it? Same tash and whatnot.
One of the very, very, very few and rare expressions of Mario that is different from like the standard expression of Mario. It's a kind of a rare one. So something to note.
Nice. That's my number 4. Let's go to the number.
Great
pick.
Number 3.
And Mr. H, over to your number 3 obscure.
Very obscure. My number 3 obscure is Gumshoe.
Gumshoe.
Nope.
No, not
you loved some noir, didn't you, mate?
I did.
Yes,
and this was thoroughly disappointing.
But it made the list.
It did make the list, and the reason it made the list is because it was one of the games that, although I got it with expectations, it just didn't live up to what I had in my head. But I played it regardless and became uber at it, and you'd complete it time and time and time again. So Gumshoe, released on the platform in 1986, it combined side-scrolling platforming, so very much like the original. Very much like Super Mario Brothers 2.
Oh yes,
that format. Yeah. Mm-hmm. In fact, if you look at it, you'll go, "Hang on a minute, it's Super Mario Brothers 2." But it combined it with the light gun shooter.
Okay.
So the character of Mr. Stevenson, who is an ex-FBI agent turned detective, he's out to rescue his daughter from a mafia boss called King Dom.
Good. Love it. I'm all in on this already.
He's basically got 24 hours to find 5 Black Panther diamonds. It's virtually impossible.
That so wouldn't fly today.
No. Along the way, you'd be attacked by monsters, sharks, and airplanes. Obviously, that's what happens in the world of detectives.
What a combo! Monsters, sharks, and airplanes.
And dive bombing airplanes.
and Black Panther, apparently.
So, Mr. Stevenson is constantly moving. But in order to make him jump and kind of avoid the obstacles and the bad guys, you'd have to shoot him. So every time you'd shoot him on target, he would jump.
So is this when you have to drop the controller and go and grab the gun?
No, you don't use the controller.
Sounds familiar to me for some reason.
So he's always moving.
Okay.
So you don't need to control him. So you shoot him, and then he'd jump, on. So like in Mario, you'd have sort of floating platforms.
Yeah.
You can make him jump onto floating platforms and blocks, and he'd have to collect red balloons in order to sort of keep his health up. It was abysmal, but I loved it.
Gumshoe.
Because I had this before I had Super Mario. Super Mario 2, which is a different game, as we were aware. It changed the rules slightly, and I don't know. It was a kiddie thing. Like Wayne said, I loved my noir, and that's what it.
I recognise the artwork, but I've never played it. Yeah.
No, don't bother.
Don't bother.
5 minutes and you'll be done.
Yes, mate. Nintendo did some funky stuff with their peripherals, mate.
They did. Yeah,
and they released a shit ton of peripherals for this console, didn't they? Yeah,
they did.
Yeah,
it was another excuse to use the light gun because there weren't many games out of at the time that you could really do that with. I mean, a lot of them were sort of straightforward shooters.
Exactly.
You'd shoot him to make him jump, and then you'd shoot on target the bad guys or the sharks or the monsters, things like that, in order to kill them. But he kept moving the whole time. So,
Interesting.
Stay on target.
Stay on target.
So that was your...
That was your obscure. So what's your actual number 3,
that was
sir?
obscure. Donkey Kong.
The original, the classic.
The original classic
Nice.
Donkey Kong. So released on the platform in 1983. So this kind of pioneered...
This is a launch
Fuck,
game.
that's 40 years old now.
That's a launch game, mate.
Indeed, it was. And it pioneered the genre of the platform game before the term was coined.
Yeah.
We didn't know what it was at the time.
Nintendo called them athletic games.
Is that what they were?
Yeah, that's what they called them internally.
Okay.
Yeah, but before they were even known as platform
Was
games.
that the Japanese translation, or was that just...
No, that's just what they called them, like, because you were like being an jumping around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, we all know what Donkey Kong is. Our little character, who I shall come to in a second, jumps barrels and climbs ladders, dodges fireballs, and generally wants to get to the top to rescue his beloved Pauline from this raging ape at the top.
Yes, not the Princess Peach.
Not what we think of, no.
Pauline, not
Pauline,
Peach.
exactly. Peach is getting cucked in that bit.
The OG.
Oh, how Pauline is now forgotten.
Yes, mate.
But we talked about cutscenes. There was very tiny cutscenes built into it as well, just in between levels, of Donkey Kong getting angry and climbing up to the next level. On this construction.
That's when you got to the top, he would go up to the next level, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he'd beat his chest and drool a bit, and then
chuck more shit.
Beat his chest. I
grab
like
his
that.
woman, and then off he'd go.
Grabs Pauline.
The nondescript lady, featuring a character called Jumpman.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so as far as I'm aware, and I would very happily welcome any advice from Wayne, but Jumpman was the first appearance of who we now know as Mario. There's two schools of thought on this because I did my research. It is Mario, or it is Mario's father. So he appears in his usual overalls with the same hat, the same white gloves. It is Mario for all intents and purposes. It's his very first appearance. But I think I've just got this feeling that it's like George Lucas with Star Wars. They retrofitted the mythos of Mario around this character. It just happened to look the same.
Yeah,
that's my own feeling.
Yeah.
The Donkey Kong game, correct me if I'm wrong, was designed, published, and coded by Shigeru Miyamoto.
Yes.
So I'm pretty sure he would have utilised exactly the same things. Like he has a habit of, like a leitmotif in music. He takes themes and uses them again and again. So he might have taken the Jumpman and gone, okay, well, that's Mario now.
Mario,
Boom.
yeah.
And that makes sense.
Just to quiet the fans.
Yeah, exactly. That's Mario now. But no, I don't know if this is an urban legend or not, Howard. You might know or not. But was Donkey Kong a mistranslation of Monkey Kong?
I think
the D to M thing.
No, I have
remember
heard that before, but I don't
this.
know that for sure.
I don't know if that's an urban thing or like.
This kind of ties into the whole. We in modern age we have Godzilla.
Yeah.
Gojira.
The Japanese knew it as Gojira. And again, myth and legend would lead you to believe that it was the American, upon hearing the word Gojira, heard Godzilla. It's not a direct translation. So, I've got a funny feeling he was Monkey Man.
It was like
I've heard
Monkey
this
Kong.
several times.
Yeah.
Sorry, Monkey Kong.
As opposed to like Donkey Kong,
Yeah.
which when you think about it, makes no fucking
No,
sense.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Monkey Kong, though, I can buy
It makes
that.
sense, but now, Donkey Kong is this legendary character.
legendary.
Like Mario, another license for Nintendo. They've made him.
Wasn't there a point in that
universally
game where he grabbed a hammer and started like bashing
he
the
did.
barrels
That's
or
exactly
something?
it. He did.
Yeah,
He's very, very close to making my
He
list,
got
Howard.
really pissed off throughout that game.
Yes, mate. He is an
All that
angry
for
boy.
Pauline, eh?
Yeah.
Just animal rights abuser with Mario. Beating shit. So, but that was super close to making my list. It's such a legendary game, man.
It is.
It's a really formational, like, in terms of good quality, like, platforming games, that's certainly one of the first. Like, real good.
Nice.
Good choice.
Good choice, sir. Over to the Games Master, number 3, sir.
My number 3. Let me go back to my list of stuff. Aha! My number 3 is Super Mario Brothers 2.
Haha.
2?
Yeah.
Super Mario
Intriguing,
Brothers
sir.
2.
And I think he's picked 2, the reason that I referred to 2 as well.
Okay.
So, Super Mario Brothers 2 is a fascinating game for a number of reasons. Very unusual. Basically, everyone remembers Super Mario Brothers, right? The super famous game, formational game, incredible game that's released. And Super Mario Brothers 2 was super different, like completely different. You could pick a character at the beginning of the stage, and each character had a different ability. You either had Mario, you had Luigi, you had Princess Peach, you had Toadstool, right? And like Luigi had like a really floaty jump, I think it was.
His legs used to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was Mario was like an all-rounder, and Peach, I think she had like a.
She could glide
float,
for a bit or something.
She could glide, I think it was.
Was it? Oh no, it was her dress. I think
the dress,
yeah.
Of course, Japan. So I got to stick that fan service in somewhere. And yeah, it was very, very interesting. And when you look back and do a little bit of digging, Mario Brothers 2 in Japan was very different. Mario Brothers 2 was basically a rehash of Super Mario Brothers, but with really, really hard levels. And they marketed it as like hardcore Mario 2. You know, if you thought Super Mario Brothers was hard, you a pussy.
Yeah.
This is the real shit now. And they released Super Mario Brothers 2, which eventually went on to become Super Mario Brothers: The Lost Levels in one of the All-Stars.
In All-Stars, wasn't it? That's right, yeah.
Okay. That release did not fly in the US market, right? At all. It would not fly in the international market. And a lot of the feedback that they got from fans in the Japanese market was that this is actually really, 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 really fucking hard. Why have you released this? This is punishing. I hate it. Some, hardcore gamers loved it, but it was basically the criticism was this is the same thing again, utilizing the same sprites, etc. There was another game at the time also released called Doki Doki Panic, which was an entirely separate game by a third-party company, also released for the NES. This was not a Nintendo release. This is something different. And it's exactly the same game as we know as Super Mario Brothers 2. So what Nintendo did was take that, repurpose, relicense it, and release it in Western markets as Super Mario Brothers 2,
clever.
Which is why it's so completely different to the rest of the Mario series, right? You play Super Mario's 1, 2, 3, and then into the SNES series, Mario World and All-Stars. They all have, 1, 3, World and All-Stars, they all have a vibe, right? They're all very recognizable. 2 is like the red-headed stepchild cousin, right? Who, very, very different, right? Completely different. And that's why. Not developed by Nintendo, developed by a third party, was released as a different game with a different license, was basically just called Doki Doki Panic, had totally different characters, etc. So they released that in the US as Super Mario Brothers 2, and then re-released it in Japan as Super Mario Brothers International.
Okay.
And that's why it's so completely different. It's such a weird little entry in the Mario series.
So I did hear that it wasn't originally intended to be a Mario game, but I didn't know kind of the history around it. So that makes perfect sense now.
Yeah, and it's and I fucking loved it.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And notice as well the enemies in that game completely different.
Yeah.
Like that's where you still get shot. Go ahead, John.
Well, harking back to some of the previous podcasts we've been on, I talk about the fans come up with these theories about things. So now the fan theory about Super Mario Brothers 2 is some sort of weird fever dream for Mario.
Yeah, maybe. That makes sense.
So if you just jump from 1 to 3 and just forget that's a dream. It's like Highlander 2, it didn't happen.
Yeah, that movie.
Yeah, I mean, even like attacking enemies, you're chucking turnips, man. Turnips. Wasn't
there like a boss who shot eggs and you had to, as he shot, you picked them up and threw them back at them or something? Yeah,
like you had these weird fucking blowjob mouth dinosaurs.
That's it.
Shoot like eggs at you, and that was really terrifyingly weird. And like that wasn't in Super Mario Brothers. And then you had like the weird fucking creepy little dudes with 3 eyes that would crawl along the floor. Like that wasn't in Super Mario Brothers. I don't remember throwing turnips at enemies in Super Mario Brothers. This is fucking weird. Yeah, it is a fever dream in the Mario universe, but a fascinating release. And I remember playing that and absolutely falling in love with it. I mean, I loved everything about it. The colours, the different abilities. They were super fun. Like
you're right, the colour, it was so much more vibrant than Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, right. Yes, and just, like they more detail, like more use of different sprites and stuff, like more cartoony. And the fact wait, Luigi's different. If I jump, he's like there's a different jump, and Mario's different, and like Peach, they all do different stuff. Wow, that blew my fucking little mind. Like that's real cool. I love the shit out of that game, mate. It was a fascinating game, and it has a fascinating history.
I remember the ice world, and that was the first time I got to use you would skid, and you were like, "Oh, wait, there's something coming! I've got to stop and turn around very quickly." Yeah, that was such a blast. Do you remember the doors used to be like an eagle mouth, and it would open up, and you would walk in? It's like, where's the pipes in this game?
Yeah, right. Completely fucking weird, mate. It didn't make any sense at all. I think, as far as I can see on my article here, it's 88 release, so a few years after the original Super Mario Brothers in 1985 in Japan. Super Mario Brothers 2, I think, was only the Japanese original one, the super hard one, was like literally a year after the original. It was like a rehash, make it real hard, and that's what and then didn't do quite as well as they hoped. So then they released this. So fascinating history. Good game.
Yeah, good choice, sir. Very good choice. I'm glad you picked it because I like the fact that you've got into the history of it. Can you still get the Okie Dokie Day, whatever it's called?
I don't know if you still can.
No?
I mean, you probably can you can ROM it.
Emulator or something.
Yeah, get an emulator. The characters are completely different. I think it's like a Persian type thing, maybe. I think
explains the magic carpet in the game.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Right, this, mate. So
there we go.
That's exactly what it is.
Nice. Very good pick, sir.
Thank you.
My number 3? Yeah, number 3. Going for the love of horror movies as a child, my number 3 is Castlevania. The very first one. I got this for a birthday gift and never knew anything about it at all. All I saw was that epic front cover of like Simon Belmont with his whip around him, looking up at this castle with like a side picture of Dracula looking down at him, sort of thing. And it looked fucking awesome as a picture, as a poster. Pop this fucker in, and it was like the whole concept of like, Dracula has overtaken this village and you're sending a warrior in here bit by bit to take out certain monsters as you go. Every level was just right up my alley. Being a lover of classic Universal monsters and stuff, how each boss was like a bat, Frankenstein, the mummy, all that sort of stuff. And it's not an easy game either. This is a hard son of a bitch of a game. Because it has that annoying when you get hit, you fall backwards a bit. So if you're on a water level and a sea creature hits you and you fall backwards to the water, it's dead straight away. This was like Dark Souls in the 80s for me, if you will. This was you have to get good for this game.
Get good, motherfucker.
That's it.
Castlevania was hard as shit.
Big time, mate. And what was it? You had to hit the candles to get items. It's like, of all things to hit, candles was like, and this was the thing, because this was mind-boggling. So in the game you collected hearts, but hearts was not health, hearts was currency, which I had to wrap my head around, because every time I was young, first time playing, it's like, I'm healing up. Yeah. It's like, why is my health bar not going up? And then you have to look for these steaks, little steaks or burgers or whatever it was, I can't remember now, that actually healed you up just a smidge, not even a full health.
No.
But then you'd get other little items that like a boomerang or holy water and all that sort of stuff, just to help you on your quest or not. I just love the fact how it's brought up. That was the game that sort of brought up what they call, including your game, Howard, Metroidvania style games.
Yes, Metroidvania.
Where you've got the map and you've got certain ways you can do it, and different levels as you go up and progress. Just a fantastic game. I remember having mates over for sleepovers, just trying to, because it's a one-player game, by the way, and you would take turns on levels and whatnot, or take turns on when you die, just to beat this fucker. And it was good times ahead, man.
I never owned it. I think that one was a bit too violent for my parents to buy me, possibly. But I certainly remember playing it and thinking, this is cool as shit, mate. And it was so hard.
Yes.
It was, yeah.
Super hard.
I never owned it. It was one of the games that I would go to a friend to play, and nobody ever completed it.
No.
And it frustrated the hell out of me.
It was rough going, man.
Yeah. I think, I'll be honest here, I think this was one of the games where I had to first use the Game Genie to help me out. Yeah. Just to really do it. But that wasn't until I got a little bit older, saved up my pocket money and got the Game Genie. But yeah, just to eventually beat this guy. I probably still can't do it to this day, beat it, but hey. But yeah, the Game Genie, anyone remember that?
Yes,
I do 100% remember the Game Genie. It was a phenomenal device, mate. You could do weird shit with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it would basically be hacking games and like bypassing, I think, the N-lock code or whatever.
It would come with a booklet of all these different codes. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah,
it's
it was
crazy.
He felt like a wizard.
Do you know?
Yeah.
It was developed and released by a company called Codemasters.
Oh, yes.
I know, they did Micro Machines and stuff.
They released Micro Machines and went
Yeah.
on to release Colin McRae Rally.
Yeah, nice.
They weirdly like racing game specialists.
Yeah.
But the first thing they were super famous for was the Game Genie, which
Nice.
broke games like fucking weird.
Well, I played a lot of Codemasters games on the Amstrad.
There we go. That company made the Game Genie, mate.
Nice. Yeah, that is my number 3. I can't go any further on that. Just it was a hard fucker,
great
right up my theme, so had to go on to the list.
Cracking choice.
I must say, it's a good game. For me, it never really came into its own until it reached the N64.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a legendary game, though. Castlevania 64,
it is,
like
yeah.
literally legendary. Amazing.
yeah, because the NES had Castlevania 2 and 3 as well, which I've heard aren't very good. Obviously, I couldn't afford to get those games. I never really back to it till the SNES, but we might go back onto that on the episode. But Castlevania still goes today. It's very popular today. It has its own animated series on
mate.
Netflix and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to note, like a lot of the stuff that the NES did, the SNES just did better. Like it took those,
Oh, 100%.
it took those IPs and went.
It went super.
Now we got 16 bits. Oh fuck!
8 extra bits.
Strap in. Yeah. So yeah, it was good.
Nice.
Good choice.
Number 2, guys.
Number 2.
Howard, back to number 2, obscure.
Not so obscure, but possibly for this platform is Dragon's Lair.
Yes.
I remember Dragon's Lair.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you should.
But it wasn't the game we expected, was
wasn't
it?
the game, and like Gumshoe, boy, was I disappointed.
Dude.
So, Dragon's Lair, originally released in '83. I think you could call it a cinematic platformer. Created by a company called Sullivan Bluth. Now, Sullivan Bluth, it was originally released as Sullivan Bluth's Dragon's Lair and used Laserdisc technology. Now, this was another one of those games that I played on that famed cabinet at that ice rink.
The animated version,
The
wasn't
animated
it?
version, yeah. Animated by ex-Disney animator Don
Bluth, yeah.
So, yeah, if you ever look at this game, you think, oh, that looks so familiar. It's because it's like a...
It's his style, isn't it?
yeah, so it's very much like Black Cauldron or I think Pete and his Dragon and stuff like that he did at the time.
Secret of Nim and all that. Yeah.
Secret of Nim, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I couldn't complete this game and it frustrated the hell out of me. So to have it released on a home entertainment system, I was like, yes.
Was you expecting it to be the full motion one? Yeah, no way!
So a little bit about Dragon's Lair. You are Dirk the Daring and you're trying to rescue Princess
Daring.
Daphne this time. It's Princess Daphne from Singe the Dragon.
That's the one, yeah.
Singe the
Fucking
Dragon,
hell.
yes. Now...
Singe the Dragon.
Singe the Dragon.
That's great.
Yes, yeah. Quite why he wanted a princess, I don't know. But yeah, so this was released on NES in 1990, and it was it basically became a side scroller. It wasn't very good.
That's a shame.
It is
That's
a shame.
a real shame.
because this is one of those legendary games. When you think back and you think Dragon's Lair, yeah, that's a part of my childhood.
You see, like the cutscenes and the video.
Yeah,
and all
absolutely, the whole lot. And because it was all very much guided by seconds, moment timing of the animation. What are you going to do? You're going to avoid the flames. You're going to avoid the falling portcullis. What are you going to do? You either hit left, right, up, down.
Choose your own adventure type thing.
Choose your own adventure. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
So. Yeah, well, I've disappointed myself talking about it now, but
But it's made the
the
list.
funny thing is that like Gumshoe, I played the hell out of it.
I bet.
I just trying to get my money's worth, I think.
Yeah.
Really. Well, I say my money's worth, my parents' money's worth.
Yeah.
Try to justify it a little bit, but it was enjoyable. And I played it because it was Dragon's Lair, but yeah, it wasn't quite as good as this.
I remember it tried to have the animated graphics, so like when you
It
jump,
did,
it looked like
yeah.
it was actually
It
jumping,
did,
but
yeah. And
it just wasn't the animated we wanted.
I think
was
it kind of paved the way for games that we now know as like Aladdin and things like that because it was a Disney style
Yes.
animation and the things that came later like The Lion King, Aladdin, we could see where that came from, but enjoyable nonetheless.
It was like ambitious for them to try and do anything like that because you got to think about the restrictions of the time, right? Of the console and the games, right? Your games were about 300 or 400 kilobytes in size.
Yeah.
Like at most, maybe half a meg, right?
It's crazy. Isn't it?
Right? When you think about that, most games about 500 kilobytes, right? I downloaded Final Fantasy 16. It was like 20 gig, right? This is a different world, right? So you think what they managed to do was still very good. But you can't put video on that. It just there's no amount of video fits on it at all. And we think about like the NES's processor. It was like 1.8 megabytes. Megahertz in speed. 1.7 something megahertz in speed. I think most processors these days, good ones, are like 4 gigahertz plus. I mean, so what they did with the power of the console was impressive, but there was no way they could promise and deliver something like Dragon's Lair.
And an 11-year-old boy was very disappointed.
I bet he was.
Like it says, it has made the list because it was an enjoyable game.
It's a nostalgic experience.
It was a nostalgic experience. Yeah, of course it was. So Dragon's Lair.
But your actual pick, your classic pick.
Now we know it as Kung Fu, but Master of Kung Fu.
Whoa! That's what the Lego.
Spot on.
Nice.
It's bringing all the memories back.
So it was essentially Game of Death, wasn't it? But on a
yes, it was. If you look at the mechanics and the theme of it, it is Bruce Lee's Game of Death, but. It was actually based on a film that came out in 1985 when the game came out. A film called, and I shit you not, it is called Wheels on Meals. And I'm not getting that the wrong way around. Wheels on Meals, starring Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung.
I know the film.
Sammo Hung.
Sammo Hung was very big at the time. So you're playing a character called Thomas. You're trying to rescue the girlfriend, whose name I absolutely forget.
Generic woman in the video game.
Who's called her Pauline.
Who probably Pauline, who got beaten up. From Mr. X, from the Devil's Temple, and you have to fight the 5 sons of the devil. I mean...
So it literally was just the 5 levels.
And it was the 5 levels.
Yeah.
But
very similar.
It wasn't that easy.
Not easy,
it wasn't that easy, no.
No chance.
After 16,000 hours, you become a master of Kung Fu.
What
an enjoyable game. You punched, kicked, and jumped your way to unnamed
It's a
female.
victory, probably.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I remember like just the first level. It's you get past so many minions, but then there's the little guy at the end who's got like a sword. And literally one touch of it is 3/4 of your health gone.
Oh, he was.
You literally had to master
son
it.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Who the hell are you? If you hadn't been wiped out by floor snakes or things like that, then you could get your way in and enjoyable fun.
The sound effects every so every time he punched or kicked, it was something, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was just like a side swipe, like a very very Bruce Lee movement.
Amazing.
I believe the picture of it is just him with the legs up. He's
got sort of a fighting stance with the leg moving along the floor.
Yeah,
brilliant. The creator of the game, whose name escapes me at the moment, but we can research this later. He went on to work for Capcom.
Nice.
Now Capcom, as we know, produced many famous games, but most
lots of fighting games, mate.
Mm-hmm. Street Fighter.
Yeah.
And the legend has it that this was his main inspiration for creating the Street Fighter format.
Okay.
And everything that followed.
Nice origin story there.
Nice origin story of Street Fighter.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll come back with the name of the guy that created it. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, Kung Fu.
Nice.
Kung Fu, great
pick.
Mate.
I remember when you got to those stairs, it was an achievement.
Yeah, well, of course it was. Yeah, it was a tough game. It was. Again, like what
I made it to the next level, and the first guy. No, what was it? It was like wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, well, you'd judder back, wouldn't you?
That's it. Yeah.
That's it. And you just sort of phase through the floor.
Amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah, brilliant game.
Nice. Games Master number 2.
My number 2 is simply known as Punch Out in the PAL territory. It couldn't not be. I've got such amazing memories of Punch Out. I mean, I spent hours on this game, and you've sort of introduced it already. It's a boxing game. It's a sports game. It is at this point a legendary sports game, probably one of the greatest boxing games ever created, without doubt. Fight me. It is incredible. And did things in a really, really amazing way. And it's actually a very cleverly disguised puzzle and pattern recognition game, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
It's more of like
so you're learning the moveset.
It's a memory test.
It's more of a pattern memorization game. You recognise the moves, you try and remember the moves, and then you try and have the counter to the moves. Phenomenal game. Again, released as Mike Tyson's Punch Out in Japan. Mm-hmm. I went and had the license for it in 1987. That was released in Europe. It was released in 1991. So a 4-year release gap. Yeah. That is disgraceful when you think about it. Like, it just doesn't work. Like many games of the time, it was an arcade port. This game was on the arcades. I don't know if you remember. I remember playing the arcades of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the difference is, I don't know if you remember, the arcade version was like a wireframe boxer. Mm-hmm. So he was like literally a wireframe that you saw through against the other boxes that you'd fight. Whereas the NES edition, obviously, again, because of the console restrictions of the power of it and space capacity of a cartridge, they just created a little sprite instead. But they used that restriction as creativity. So instead of having like a 200-pound boxer, they just called him Little Mac, and he was an underdog. And now that's a legendary thing.
It is.
Right? So he's
even in like Smash Bros and stuff, isn't he?
He is,
Right,
isn't
he? Yeah,
and that whole thing was born purely through restriction in like processing power and storage. So they went, let's just try and make the most of it. We're going to make a small sprite, and he's going to be a underdog, and that has made a great underdog story. It's like a Rocky story.
Yeah,
like many of these games, that limitation has bred this.
It breeds creativity.
It does.
But still, what they did with it is just, I mean, I remember like when the boxer was nearly died, but he would pull back and he would go, like, come at me. It's just little things, man. It's just so good.
Little details, mate. And just a side note there, Hal, you raise a wonderful point that any sort of restriction will breed creativity. If you tell a musician he's only got 5 notes to use, there'll be a bunch of different things they can create with 5 different notes, mate. If you tell a musician he can use every note in every instrument that's ever existed, where the fuck do I start?
Yeah.
Right? I can't be creative with that. I mean, I'm going to get lost in it.
Same with the movie, essentially, as well.
Yeah, exactly. Final Fantasy's famous composer was famous for saying that. Yeah, he actually preferred like the sort of
limitation
SNES and early PlayStation eras where it was less things to choose from because you could be creative within that restriction. Anyway, so it was an arcade port that had the license to use Mike Tyson, so it was Mike Tyson's Punch Out, but they lost that just about the time where they had to release it in the PAL territories for various legal reasons that I don't want to go into because I couldn't be asked.
Mike Tyson might be listening.
Yeah, man, I don't want to try Mike Tyson this evening. But he was replaced by Mr. Dream, which we know. He was the dude at the end of the whole thing. If you look, Mr. Dream's record and his likeness is based on Rocky Marciano, a very, very famous boxer.
Yes.
Obviously, a very, very famous, legendary boxer. The record is exactly the same, which is quite interesting. So if you remember, in the game, we had the minor, the major, and the world circuits.
Yes.
And they were amazing. And you had to fight through different circuits to get up to like the world circuit. And I think it was 3, then 4, then 5, or 3, then 4, then 6, like boxes. So the more boxes in the higher circuits. And you had a few attempts to do it, otherwise you'd drop down the circuit, you'd have to fight your way back up again. Exactly. You had these little cut scenes where you had, Doc, your trainer, he'd be running along the street, and he'd be like cycling, going, hurry up, little Mac, you can do it. But that was amazing as well. It was just a fucking phenomenal game. I mean, I loved everything about it. Some interesting little factoids about it. All of the character sprites were used twice and then renamed and then added different movesets.
Okay.
They just gave them a different colour palette.
Right. Okay.
That wouldn't make sense, I guess, yeah.
Go back and play. You've got 14 characters that you fight, I think it is. I think everyone except King Hippo is like a colour shift or a palette swap or something like that. And they appear, the ones you fight in the minor circuit appear later in the major circuit and vice versa and stuff like that. Which is very interesting. And it's amazing how the game does so much with such little moveset. You have a left jab, you have a right jab, and you have an uppercut. And then, of course, you can duck and you can block and you can move left and right. So you got your defensive moves and you got your attacking moves. And then you could get stars by doing counter punches at certain times. And the stars let you do the uppercut, which is like your super move.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
And it felt so fucking rewarding when you got your counter punch just right. And you get that little noise. So like that you got a star.
Yes, to say yes.
And it's ready to go. You're like, fuck you. Bam. Yeah, it was so good. You could get a technical knockout, and then they get up, and then they get knocked out.
But do you remember when you actually knocked them out, and they do this thing in the corner, go, woo, 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 woo.
You have like Mario's count, like just making noises.
Like, stay down.
Yeah, so it's amazing what they did just with your basic moveset of defensive and attacking moves, and then pattern recognition. That's basically the game.
Yeah.
And it is legendarily good.
Yeah.
It is fucking great. It controls brilliantly, super tight, like a lot of games of the era. Like control accuracy and tightness and response.
Yes,
felt so good. Like it felt like right. You know, even on that crappy square controller, which was super uncomfortable to hold. Like these
there
days,
you go, right there.
Hold it. That's not a comfortable.
That's not comfortable.
But yeah, and like let's not even. I'm going to quickly go into this bit because I've got a lot to say about this game.
No, please keep going, mate.
I played it a lot. Me and my brother smashed the shit out of it, played hours of it, and then Super Punch Out, which we loved even more. Spoilers for the next episode, I guess. Whenever we do,
I never really got to play Super. I knew of it, but I never really got to play it.
Oh my god, it was so good. But yeah, just like that super stereotypical, borderline racist characters. My goodness, dude! You like talk about a company that didn't give a flying fuck.
Acceptable in the 80s.
Yeah, acceptable in the 80s. Glass Joe. You had a cowardly Frenchman who would surrender at the first instance, mate, with his who came out to the French national anthem, which is ridiculous. Piston Hurricane or Piston Honda at the time was the stereotypical Japanese guy. He had like a fucking bandana and a little red rising sun and the fucking, you had Soda Popinski. Do you remember him?
Soda Popinski. Well, I can only imagine.
Big muscular dude, right? He was the Russian guy, bald, pointy head. Guess what he was in the Japanese release before Nintendo of America went, no, you can't do that.
Go on.
Vodka Drunksky. he was your Russian guy? Are you kidding? Are you fucking kidding? Yeah, so they had him. Bald Bull was obviously everyone. Bald Bull, the Turkish dude. Guess what the Italian fighter was called?
No, go on.
Pizza Pasta.
Oh my god!
No way.
Pizza Pasta. That's a company that doesn't give a fuck.
How the fuck, man?
We're gonna have an Italian boxer. What's he called? Pizza Pasta.
Jesus
of course
Christ.
he is. And then your Spanish fighter was Don Flamenco, and he'd go out with his flamenco fucking dance.
It's not as bad as pizza pasta, I guess.
Yes, man. You got your Indian fighter. Great Tiger comes out on a fucking carpet. It's just like incredible, mate. And then if you've got your American stereotype, which was super macho man, who'd come out with his grease stabs and he was just a ridiculous Western stereotype. Hilarious characters looked back fondly with retrospect, and phenomenal stuff. Great fun. Classically Nintendo in its boldness. Classically Nintendo in its great design choices. Wonderful controls, and was a smash hit, and deservedly so. My number 2, Punch Out.
Amazing pick, sir. Amazing choice. I don't know how to follow that.
Try, Anthony, try.
So, my number 2 is probably going to be one of the hardest games for the NES. Again, still never finished it myself, but in 1991, it was the top topic for every young male in the era. TMNT.
Yes. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, man.
Now, I kind of have an issue with this as much as you did with Dragon's Lair, sir.
Right.
Because if we remember, in the arcade, Konami released the 4-player beat-em-up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay? Which Nintendo, sort of at the time, advertised that this game would be the home port of it. Turns out that it wasn't. Completely different game to what the arcade was. But I never really owned it. Again, this is... all my mates had it before I did. But right off the bat, where it came out just, I think, alongside the movie at the time, the same summer of the movie anyway.
91, 92?
1990, that was. 1990.
Yes.
And I was just like completely flabbergasted with it. Again, you can still pick your turtles. You can still go against the Foot Clan to a degree. Still go against the bosses such as Bebop, Rocksteady. Totally different style, but the fucking difficulty and level design is abysmal. Absolutely abysmal in this game. And talking about, again, Wayne, you talking about the memory or the amount of capacity of the game, where I think if you had more than 5 people on one screen, it would freeze frame. Like if you jumped, it would take you a minute to get to the ground because it was so over what it should be doing, and Nintendo thought they can take it, but it was such a hot game at the time. And then when I finally got my parents to give it to me that year of 1990, Christmas 1990, I got it with the console, It was one of the ones where they changed it up, and if you wanted to get it, you could get it with the console. Package deal, exactly. Nice. So that's how I kind of got it in the end. But have you guys played it?
Now, I'm going to tell you what I remember about it.
Okay.
And you'll tell me if this is the game.
No, go for it.
I remember like a somersaulty jump and then with the sword sticking out.
Yes.
Is that the game?
That's the one, yeah.
Then I did play it, and for some reason I remember some sort of map, but I don't know that.
Yes,
part.
that's right. Yes, you would come out and you would be in the not the blimp, you'd be in the turtle van, wouldn't you? And you could go to certain areas and then you'd get the level.
Streets,
yes.
That has hit a real nostalgia nerve for me. It's like making me kind of sad inside. I like it. So, that bittersweet feeling of the past.
Yeah.
And, like I'm getting like real black and white vague memories of it. Mate.
Does anyone remember the phenomenal or infamous water level when you had to defuse a bomb?
I don't.
With the electric seaweed all over it.
Was that in a...
No, it was. I think you drop into a sewer, but it was actually an underwater level, and you've got to defuse 10 bombs in 2 minutes, whilst avoiding electric seaweed, electric currents.
Oh damn!
As well as not trying to get your turtle dead, because once it died, you can pick the other 3 turtles, whatnot.
Yeah, but you want to keep this one.
But do you remember when? Again, if you don't remember as well, but when your health got down to a smidge, and you would have this alarm go off, it would be and that thing would go on and on and on until either you died or got a pizza to bring your health back up.
Man.
But what a thrill ride this game was. Again, I shouldn't really mock it now because it's an instant classic for me, for my friends, for being such a Turtle fan at the time. Unfortunately, it wasn't the game I wanted, but funny enough, Nintendo eventually released it, I think 3-4 years later or something.
It did, yes. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
Yeah, it was the second one. The arcade game, there we go. So
that's what they wanted, that's what they delivered.
And that's what they delivered. Again, a couple of years later, but hey, they eventually got there. And it was, again, still wasn't up to the arcade standards, but...
No, of course not. But
still good enough.
Yeah, we use this word, much of a nostalgia ride, and it didn't matter by that point. I think because you sort of cut your teeth on the original version. You played the arcade game. Yeah. This was like a reward, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, still good enough game, but hey,
and it's like important to remember as well. Of the time, like arcades were a thing, right? Like, it's not like it is now, where like they're basically. It's like a gambling den, kind of shady. No one fucking goes in there. All your mates would go to the arcade,
absolutely,
and you'd like stick money, 20p at a time, and you would pound these games, right? Yeah. And then when they'd come out for your home console, you'd be super excited about it. So
and I missed that so much. I mean, I remember we in Crawley used to have Downtown USA, and that was like the place to go for arcade machines. Anything from your fightings to your light guns and all that, just. I know we kind of had it with the bowling alley, but the arcades are not as good.
It's not the same.
It's not the same as what it is. They're just like racing games or gun games now.
It's funny, isn't it? You watch things like Stranger Things, and you see. I know it was in the 80s, but the kids in the 80s, and they went to this place. That was the only thing for them, and they made their friends there, and they made relationships.
It's how they met people and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You sort of built your childhood there. I miss it. I do. I grew up in Gillingham in Kent, and we had one very similar.
I'm so sorry.
I know. Mate,
what, the growing up part or where he was?
You don't have to apologise. Why do you think I live here now? It's just a shame that we don't have anything like that anymore.
It's different, like home consoles now are as powerful as they can possibly fucking be. Like it's a different experience. Like it's
a past, isn't it?
Yes, mate. But it was of its time. So, but I've got real vague memories of it, mate. And I've just taken a look at a couple of pictures
of it,
I definitely played it. Don't know if I owned it, can't remember. But
at least
I do.
You remember it somewhere
in
there. Yeah. So can't deny for its time and for when it released, it had to be number 2. Let's go with the final ones.
Let's do it.
It's number 1.
Howard, bring it home, sir.
So for my obscure list, I am choosing Spy versus Spy.
I know this game very well.
Good, excellent. So sprung from the pages of Mad magazine, which you may or may not know. It was a comic strip featuring the black and the white spy.
Yes, I remember.
It was so very straightforward. 2 superpowers fighting it out in the world of in the spy world. Where in this comic strip they would basically
And that was the front cover, them two, like,
yeah,
head next to one another, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they would kill each other with elaborate weapons and devices and things like that. It was very Looney Tunes in its concept.
Yes,
a bit like Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. One would get blown up with an Acme bomb. Anyway, so the game released in 1986 on the platform. It was like a puzzle room game. We didn't get it in the UK till about 1991, I think. Worth the wait, because this was one of those games where myself and my friend, because we were very much into Mad Magazine, being into comics as I was at the time, couldn't wait for it. It was one of those strips that I enjoyed, and yeah, they blow me down. They've turned it into a computer game. Who'd have thought? So yeah, you'd move from room to room and collect various like secret items that you'd have to piece together, put in your briefcase, and basically survive this crawl around this network of rooms, and then make your way to the airport. You'd escape in a plane. You'd either have to kill the opposite spy first, or just basically survive until you can reach the airport. But yeah, a very straightforward game. And it kind of ties in again with this kind of analytical thinking, really. I like beat-em-ups. I like platform games. But games where you just have to think just a little bit outside of the box, even with one more brain cell, then, yeah, I appreciate games.
A bit of pure logic, a bit of puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
This was a Commodore 64 game.
It was.
That was then re-released on the NES and like a number of platforms. But I remember this sort of pretty vividly. And it was like you could play this 2-player, right?
It was 2-player.
Yeah, 2-player.
Yeah, you could play it 1-player or 2-player.
Yeah, you could play it 1-player or 2-player. Yeah, super fascinating, mate. Very puzzly.
It was, yeah. And again, it lends itself to sort of my comic book heritage, really, which is why it's on the list. But I'm glad you've heard of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I've not played
the... like pointy noses and...
Pointy noses,
right, yes.
pointy hats. They look like your atypical sort of Eastern Bloc spy.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because my friend had it on his Atari 2600, and it was so difficult to differentiate. And which one is which now?
Well,
it's just
I think the upgrade to the NES gave you the difference between the black and the white spy.
Yeah, exactly.
No, good fun.
Nice pick, mate.
Nice pick, sir. So what is the actual
classic number one?
What is the number one?
Duck Hunt.
Oh, it's Duck Hunt. Oh, yes, you did mention it was on your list.
Yeah. Spoilers.
Yes.
You're a Duck Hunt.
There's not a lot I can really add to it. Really.
Sorry, Karen.
Indeed, yeah. I can't add a lot to what Wayne's already added to it, really. Good fun. And I think the light gun was such an inventive piece of tech for the time.
There were other games for that light gun, wasn't there?
There were.
Yeah,
you had Hogan's Alley.
Yes.
What was the one that featured in Back to the Future? I think it's actually on my honourable mentions list. But yeah,
okay.
a lot of Western games where you'd... It was, can't remember. But...
it's like a baby's toy.
It was like a baby's toy. But as Wayne pointed out, so very difficult on some of these games. But yeah, so you had to have your cathode ray tube TV.
CRT
your
telly.
CRT telly in order to play this bloody thing. And I think recently with the comic shop, myself and Chris tried to plug it in to a flat screen TV.
No chance.
Didn't even consider the fact that it was built for a particular type of technology.
Yes,
because we're sitting there like a couple of muppets going, this fucker doesn't work. I've just spent so much on this. It doesn't work. Yeah, what a numbskull.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you have to put a sensor up or anything?
No,
or was it literally just from that? Because I remember other games you had to put a sensor up. So this was just straight off the gun itself.
Through the aerial connection into the TV. Yeah, and the gun, however the technology worked, it would sense
just do it straight away
moving on the screen.
Pure radiation, mate. Poisoning us, mate.
Hey, we turned out all right.
We played.
No one gave a fuck about the safety.
So can we essentially say this was the first light gun home game?
I can't think
of anything else
before it. No, I think they did pioneer the tech on that. I mean, Wayne might know more, being the games master, but he's got a smug look on his face. So.
Yeah, okay. He's like, well, let me have my turn.
Well, I can't add anything more to Duck Hunt, so I'll hand over to Wayne.
No, I think it was more to do with it was the way the light gun worked was like an optical sensor, so it used light in an interesting way. So I think it very much. I'm sure someone on the internet is going to correct me if I'm wrong. We don't have glass on our TV screens anymore. It's very much how the way that that interacted with the light and the sensor in the gun.
Ah, okay.
So like a reflection is what it was. So it would look for light coming through the glass.
Yes, because it would flash every time you triggered, wouldn't it? Yes, that's right.
And it would be exactly accurate because you didn't have to calibrate it because it was looking at reflection points. I think, could be wrong, it's an optical sensor is how that works.
Right.
People that are smarter than me will probably point that out. But no, interesting piece of tech. I'll do a little bit of digging in between your pick and I'll see if I can find anything interesting about the Zapper.
Nice.
Anyway, my number one is probably going to be many people's number one, and it's Super Mario Brothers.
Okay.
Because Super Mario Brothers, again, was a pack-in console, pack-in game as part of the console, and was just such a foundational experience of video games for me. It was amazing, incredible game. It is, I'm sure everybody knows at this point, or everyone is familiar with Mario, and this was the one that made him famous.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, you might have seen...
Put him on the map.
Yeah, it put Mario on the map, exactly. Or down the pipe or whatever. It's the best-selling game for the NES because it was pack-in, but also, even aside from that, it's an amazing selling game. Released in Europe in 1990. Wait a second. Was it 1990? I want to say that's right. Maybe 1987. One of those 2 days. Might mix my dates up on my notes here. Anyway, ignore me. Directed, produced, designed by Shigeru Miyamoto, the legendary Nintendo
Man himself.
designer who has a iron-fisted take on quality control because all of his stuff is just amazing quality. Incredible stuff. The music is a 6-score piece, right? 6 scores, just done in different ways by Koji Kondo, and just think right now, I bet everyone listening just knows the theme tune, right?
Yeah, as soon as you think Mario, that's what hits you, isn't it?
Right, and then
So iconic.
yeah, right, completely iconic. You go underground, those notes.
It was. Yeah.
I used to hear that in my sleep.
6 notes, mate. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've got the image in your head. It's completely amazing just what you did to make the most memorable themes. Phenomenal themes. Other stuff on here that I've got. So based on the original Mario Brothers, right? There was a Mario Brothers before Super Mario Brothers. Do you remember
called Mario Brothers?
Yeah. Do you remember this, Howard?
I do.
Do you remember this, Howard?
It was one map thing, wasn't it?
It was a one map sort of single screen game, kind of a puzzle game, and you'd go through different, I suppose, layouts of the puzzle, and you'd have enemies drop onto the screen through pipes, mostly turtles, and you'd have to defeat them.
Yes.
Right? And then you'd move on to the next stage.
Strange that it should be turtles in pipes.
Weirdly weird, very weird, isn't it? Anyway, very strange. But in the original Mario Brothers, you couldn't jump on the enemies.
You had to hit underneath.
Right?
Yes,
or hit the power block, and they would flip them upside down.
Which came back in Mario 2.
That's
power
right.
block, didn't it?
That's right. Yes, it did. And you'd boot the enemies off the screen, and that's how you defeated them. So a really interesting and weird little tidbit there.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Wade. Just Jeff.
Yeah, go ahead,
Wasn't it
please.
included as an extra in Super Mario Brothers 3?
It was as well.
was,
yeah, correct. Yeah, 100% was.
That's why I
And
first
also-
played
yeah,
that one.
Correct. 100% right. Other bit on that was, what was I going to say there? Yeah, interesting little that they changed that entirely, and they changed it because during the discussions of the development of Super Mario Brothers, Miyamoto went, "Why can't you jump on turtles? Of course you can. Right? Logically, you can jump on turtle." So that's what they changed. Literally, they just went, "Oh yeah, of course you can jump on turtle." So interesting little tidbit there. So a couple of bits there. The development of the game is really interesting. Obviously, we talked about the storage limitations of the NES and the cartridge, and you've got 256 kilobytes of storage or whatever, the average game. The designers aggressively looked for space saving. So if you can get an emulated version of the original, or if you do have a copy of the cartridge original, go look back, and you may know this already, you probably do, but the bush sprites are exactly the same as the cloud sprites, the different colours.
Oh, okay.
They are exactly the same. When you jump on an enemy, that sound is the same as the swim sound.
Yes, it is. Yes, you're right.
Bloop, bloop. It's the same as the
Yes,
bloop, bloop,
yeah.
bloop, bloop. So when they designed the game, obviously it's bigger than when they have to crush it down to the cartridge. So they were really aggressively and almost competitively looking for ways to save space to the point where no one notices.
It was imperceptibly sort of
cleverly done.
Very good. Yeah.
Right, where you didn't even notice.
It's amazing how Mario held his breath that long in that water level as well.
Yeah, right.
The first time I played that level, I was always swimming to the top thinking he needed air or something, you know. It's crazy.
And another one which if you don't know this, you'll slap your face with realization. The sound when you go down the pipe is exactly the same as the sound when you get hit by an enemy.
Yes, it is.
Right, when you go from big to small Mario.
Yes.
Bloop, bloop, bloop. It's exactly the same sound. So, interesting ways that Nintendo were really smart about innovating, saving space to make the gameplay as tight and as good as possible to make the most out of their hardware, which is what they were basically legendary for, and created a phenomenal experience. Got everything from the warp pipes, which was an amazing thing, and gave you an amazing sense of discovery when you were a kid. You're going, in level 1 to 2, you find that first set of warp pipes, the secret ones, where you're jumping above the bricks in the underground level. That, when I figured that out and found that out, blew my mind. I was like, there's secrets here. I know this. No one in the world has discovered this but me.
Not even the creators.
This is amazing. I've broken the game. I'm going to level 8. And then I get fucking killed because, I don't know how to play the game properly. So, amazing sense of discovery. Wonderful. Again, great colour palette. Memorable characters. Incredibly tight game design. You can go back and play Super Mario Brothers now, and the game design is as tight and doesn't age for a reason, because it reacts perfectly to you. I mean, the limited controls do what you expect them to do, and once you learn them, you know the game, and you can then apply them in the more interesting and complicated puzzles and worlds that the game throws at you.
Yep.
And the game is actually a masterclass in teaching people to play the game, because World 1-to-1, if you, again, go back and play this, introduces you to all of the mechanisms piecemeal, bit by bit, right? Like you get your first mushroom. Right?
Yes.
You start a small Mario. Your first mushroom, if you hit it, you basically can't avoid it. It will hit you. You immediately learn that that's not a bad thing. You're blub, 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 and you are now big. Your first enemy is super easy to kill, and it's right. You can fall onto it, and it dies. The first thing that you hit will give you coins, right? And it's like deliberately set up in a way to give you that information.
To carry on with the other levels.
Carry you on with the other levels. It's like a masterpiece of introducing a player to a game without any instructions, and to learn all of what the game does and what it expects of you. And then you finish the first level, and that's all you need to know. Brilliant.
I never looked at it that way.
Incredible design.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something you literally can't avoid using all of the mechanisms within the first level, and that's everything you need to know about the game. Brilliant, absolute masterpiece.
Fantastic. Again, yeah.
I could have
eye-opener,
I could have chosen Mario 3 because it's the better game, but Mario 1 is the one that is the one. The
granddaddy.
It's a revolution, mate. It's a revolution in game design. That's my number one.
Amazing pick, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. Amazing pick. I really need to stop going after you.
You'll learn your lesson, mate. One more thing.
Go for it, please.
Over 40 million copies sold, which at the time was...
Of that one, yeah?
Yeah, at the time was Guinness World Record.
Wow. Okay.
For the most video games ever sold.
Wow. Okay. My number one was going to be Mario 3, because it is a better game.
It's a legitimately amazing pick.
But mine is the same as yours.
Super Mario Brothers.
Purely because, thank you for pouring out all those facts that I put it down. I purely put this on here because this is reflecting to a question I said, that if this was going to make you the gamer that you were going to be, this game defined me as picking out, I'm going to be the gamer for the rest of my life. Reason I put it on here, again, I've mentioned this a bunch of times on the podcast. I go to Record, and my dad used to work with arcade machines built, helped, repaired and whatnot. And one time in very early 88, I believe, I must have been 6 or 7, he brought home one of those multi-choice, 10-choice arcade machine, Nintendo machine. And this is how I got to know what Nintendo was. So I wasn't sure, I couldn't remember if he fixed it or if he brought it over just to do something with it or whatnot, but he showed me what Mario was. And again, moments I'll never forget as a kid, that my dad's the reason why I'm a gamer. I'm not sure if he knows this to this day, but he's the man who got me into Mario, Tetris, and all other classic games. But standing there and him showing me, this is how you collect a mushroom. This is how you defeat a Koopa Trooper. This is how you jump to the flag and you get extra points for the higher flag you get on Mario, such as us. Little things like sometimes if you complete the level in under a minute, you get fireworks above the thing. Everything. It just... A moment I will never forget with my dad, and like I said, when I eventually got to play it on my own and do all these nicks and tricks, finding secrets, like you mentioned as well, Wayne, was the part where I was just going, this is going to be a part of my life for a very long time. Nice. Of course, Mario 3 is a far superior and better game. The only downside to Mario 1 was when you defeat the first castle, and all of a sudden, Princess is in another castle. I've got to carry the fuck on with this thing. But like you said, I'm not going to copy what Wayne said. It is an instant classic. It is from its groundbreaking design to its soundtrack to introducing to other gamers. Again, my daughter, her first game was the Switch one, which is Odyssey. But she has now gone back to try other Marios and, relive something that I can probably relive with her. Like my dad taught me, I teach her, and she can probably, become a gamer when she gets older. So, again, very big part of my life, and I cannot deny it has to be my number one.
Absolutely, mate.
Sorry it was a copy, but there was a reason for why it was on there.
Your experience is going to be different to mine, right? And it's a completely valid one, and I think it's a beautiful reason why you pick it. You've got these great memories of your dad, showing you it, and you picking it up and taking it on, and it becoming a massive part of your life going forward. And I think it's a wonderful, beautiful thing, mate.
Thank you, man.
Lovely, great pick.
So
I've got a confession.
Go.
It was going to be my number one.
Okay,
there you go,
but
mate.
I just had this funny feeling
that
we were going to have possibly
like I said,
clash.
it was very close to Mario, very, very close, because that game. Do you remember some of the trailers and the adverts? And do you remember people shouting Mario, Mario? And it would make this big Mario head. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember.
I'll never forget that back in '91, and it's so iconic. Even the poster for that is so iconic. And
yes, mate.
Because
like we said, Mario 3 is the better game, but it's not the revolution that Super Mario Bros.
No, it is the better game only because Super Mario Brothers is so iconic.
Agreed. Yeah.
But look, I actually did write Mario / Duck Hunt, so it was going to be the combo. It was going to be the combo cartridge that you mentioned earlier.
Combo cartridge, mate. Yes.
So thank you guys for those amazing. Only a couple clashes, but do you have?
So how were you going to pick a different number one, or were you going to pick a different number one?
Yeah, it was going to be Super Mario Brothers. Yeah,
it was the same.
Yeah, it was. I kind of wish I had now because we could have had.
That's all right.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, tell us about your experience with it, though, at least.
Well, I think, like you gents have said, it was. I hate to say it was game changing.
Yeah.
In its presentation, in its style. As somebody who grew up with an Amstrad and the graphics that we had on the Atari 2600, and then along comes this character of Mario, and he was so different to anything that came before.
Yeah.
It just blew me away, really. As a little boy, I just thought I need more of this. Need more of this pizza
pasta spaghetti. Yes. Pizza pasta plumber.
Yeah, pizza pasta plumber, mate. Yes, mate.
No, what was his favourite? Was it spaghetti or pizza? What did he eat? I can't remember what he had. What did he have now? Was it lasagna? I can't remember. Used to bang on about
lasagna. Was Garfield.
Yeah, it was Garfield. But yeah, this little Italian plumber, and what an unlikely hero. And I think
an unlikely hero. Everyone likes an underdog.
Yeah, and I think the best characters have always come from those concepts. Let's not choose Simon Belmont is great, but the characters like that have been done, and it's obvious, and we know where we're going with it.
He's going to be a hero,
he's going to be a hero. He's going to win. He's going to kill Dracula. But to take this little Italian plumber from New York and build a whole game around him, a whole ethos, a whole universe, a whole culture. I think it was absolutely on point.
Yes, mate, love it. I think I should have probably lent into the New York side where he'd go, but into the Mushroom Kingdom. Like, hey, what the fuck is this? Wait, I'm walking here.
What's this mushroom coming towards me?
Hey, motherfucker! He goes,
I hate mushrooms on my pizza.
You looking at me?
You looking at me, motherfucker?
So, honourable mentions, guys. Have we got any?
I've got some, but
Please.
don't go with me. I've been waffling for fucking an hour, mate.
I've only got a couple, so
it's quite long.
But let me go first because I've only got a couple, so I'll go
it's
first.
a genuinely long list.
Double Dragon was on there. Obviously, you mentioned it, right?
Yes.
So we've got DuckTales.
Yes,
I love the aspect that you can choose which world you go to.
DuckTales was amazing.
Yeah,
mate.
like
that
Amazon
almost made my list.
Space. Did it? Yeah, it's exactly the same as mine. Gremlins 2.
Yeah.
Again, I love that because the cutscene, the so-called cutscenes in that, which is very limited
They were
animation.
done so well.
Yeah, absolutely. Bart versus Space Mutants. Tetris, of course.
Yeah.
Dr. Mario.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah?
That was a great game. Not Tetris clone kind of thing, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly. Yes, it was. And last one was Contra.
Oh, Contra.
Yes.
Great
Which was basically Aliens rip-off with a hint of Arnie and Rambo in there, wasn't it, really? The front cover was, anyway. So
Nice.
that's my list. So anyone else?
I've got a couple of short ones
Go for
before we pass it over to H's long old list. Of,
He's the man with lists.
He's the one with lists, mate. Snake, Rattle and Roll.
Yes, that's
Do
with
you
the little
remember?
ball things.
Yeah, it was like an isometric platformy puzzle game
Yes.
where you had a snake and you'd be bouncing up and down the cubes of the isometric thing,
I remember that,
collecting little
yeah.
pills to get to the. You'd have to get enough pills in order to get to the
If
next
you
level.
collected them, you'd make you bigger,
Make
wouldn't
you
it?
longer.
Yes,
That's exactly right. And you'd be bouncing your snake up
Yeah.
and down this isometric cuboid
Sounds
puzzle.
like a certain Nokia game.
Yeah, but like 3 dimensions from like an isometric view. So that was one of them. And that really, really fun. Another one was, although I think the Sega did it better, Micro Machines.
Yes, absolutely.
I think Sega probably did it better. And then I think that's pretty much of a muchness, mate. A Double Dragon was also on my list of potentials. And then Mario 3, which was beaten out by the original Mario. And then, it's not really an honourable mention, but I just want to mention because we haven't talked about it. Does anyone remember the ROB?
Rob the robot.
Yeah,
the robot.
yes.
That was another peripheral, wasn't it? Yes.
It was a
Rob the
peripheral.
robot. Yes.
Rob the robot,
Yeah.
mate.
The one game they made for that, yeah.
2.
Oh,
As a-
2.
It was 2, mate. The amount of R&D that went into that, and they released 2 games.
Yeah.
Went, actually, nah, fuck this.
No, it just
but
didn't
also, do you remember the amount of marketing that went into it?
Yes,
Man,
absolutely.
it was almost like the whole console was based off the fucking ROB robot. And I remember seeing adverts, and again, in Argos being, what is this space age shit? This is phenomenal. I didn't get one, obviously.
No, same.
They released a grand total of 2 games for it, mate. 2 games. Again, it used an optical sensor like the light gun. You have to set it up in exactly the right position for like the TV to put the light on it. Otherwise, it didn't fucking work.
All he did was just pick stuff up and move it across.
Move it
wasn't
around,
it?
yeah.
Yes.
So the games were based off that. You'd input things into your game using your controller, and then he would do things with his fucking whatever he was doing with his discs and shit.
I mean,
Yeah.
what a concept. It just, they just couldn't deliver on the...
Of course, mate. I mean, it was never going to happen. It was just a fancy toy. But anyway, so I just wanted to, if we didn't get a chance to, to talk about Rob for a bit.
No, because I mentioned the peripheral part and I completely forgot to bring him in it. But yes, good
That
shout.
was
Thank you, mate.
A ridiculous fucking thing.
Yeah, it
anyway,
was.
so those are a couple of honourable mentions. I'm
All that
sure
for
there's
2
a few
games.
more. Yeah, you guys picked such great stuff in your list that they would all be part of my honourable mentions. Donkey Kong for sure, Castlevania, etc.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Metroid, and
I'm sure the next 20 lists
They
we
could
got
not
here
be.
from Captain.
Hey, no.
Let's go,
The reason
Ace.
it's so long,
Suss them out.
I'll rattle through them. I won't talk too much because a lot of you are going to go, oh, yeah, that game. The only reason it's so long is because growing up with the NES, and I think the SNES was probably more prevalent than this, but there were so many games that I played that could and should make the top 5
Yes.
for various different reasons.
Yeah.
That I have to mention them here. Super Mario Brothers, obviously, Tetris, Batman, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, Kid Icarus.
Kid Icarus, yeah.
Kid Icarus.
Tetris, I can't not mention Tetris, mate. But that was more of a Game Boy game for me.
Yes.
To be fair, it
100%,
was for me, and the only reason I got it on here is because I did play it on the platform.
Yeah, as well. Yeah.
But the Game Boy, you need to do one on the Game Boy.
Yeah.
Oh, we will, yeah. If I get you back on, yeah, of course.
So Star Wars, the original Star Wars,
course.
Friday the 13th, which wasn't originally released.
I remember that.
Yes.
No, and it wasn't originally released. This is something I played post the whole NES boom.
Yeah.
Okay.
But being such a big horror fan that I am, and I am a massive Jason fan, I had to play this game.
So bad it's good.
Yeah, it's shocking. Mega Man.
Oh,
Oh, fuck yeah.
There's like we could talk about 20 minutes about Mega Man. We're not gonna, but that was another honourable mention that I totally forgot.
Yeah, same as. How did I forget that? Yeah.
Mega Man 3, I want to say, was the one I played a lot of.
I think that was possibly like.
I think
Super
2
Mario,
was
that
mine, yeah.
Possibly the bigger game was number 3.
It had that kind of Metroidvania thing where you'd have to get different weapons against different things. Like, that's fucking great.
Yeah, he evolved.
And the choice of which boss you could go against was phenomenal.
Yeah,
you did that in every single one, wasn't it?
Different weapons for different levels.
If I want to go against Vacuum Man, I'll go against him first or something.
Yeah, incredible. Mega Man was great.
So you referred earlier about IPs, so RoboCop.
Yes.
Which was again, I experienced that on a different platform before playing it on the Nintendo.
Sega one?
No, I played this on the Amstrad.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it became big on the Sega. Was it Ocean? I think Ocean released this game. Blades of Steel.
Don't remember that.
Ice hockey.
Hockey game, yes, I remember that.
I'm a big hockey fan. Tennis. Festus Quest.
Festus Quest, that's a hard son of a bitch
yes,
of a game,
it was,
isn't it?
Yeah. Another one of those, I must complete this game or die. I think I just died before. Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Simpsons Bart versus the Space Mutants. Ghostbusters.
Yeah, that's it.
Couldn't
on
complete
the
it.
Nintendo.
Couldn't complete it. It was just impossible. Bomberman in any iteration.
Yes, of course.
Bomberman. Oh, do you know what? I don't know where I would put
I think I played that on the SNES more than the NES.
I think it probably would be SNES. But yeah, Bomberman, I played 4-player or 2-player of fucking hours, mate. That has to go somewhere.
Yeah, I think it was on the PS1, the
all-time
4-player
games
version,
that I
wasn't it?
played. Games that I've played the most of, like
Bomberman's incredible.
Super Bomberman.
Yeah.
I think
That's a franchise that needs to come back.
Super Bomberman was amazing. Yeah.
I've got the Hunt for Red October, so there's another IP. That ties into sort of the thing that I like about pirates and Deja Vu games like that. Lemmings. What can I say about Lemmings?
Oh yeah, of course.
That was a great pick for me. That was a PC.
That's
game.
a PC one.
I
for you,
played
okay,
it. Yeah,
right.
for me it was PC. My shitty PC at the time. It was PC. Yeah, and it was probably after the NES that we got PC, mate. Like,
oh really?
Probably a long time. And so for me, Lemmings was like a post hoc play. Do you know what I mean? Like of a classic game.
Yeah, more difficult on a console than it was
probably
because you had the mouse for the PC,
very
didn't you?
probably, you have more. Yeah, it was more user friendly, wasn't it? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game.
Nice, the arcade game, nice.
Gremlins 2, the new batch.
Yeah,
Castlevania.
yeah.
Track and Field.
Track and field. Oh, the button mash. The button mash.
That is where button mashing came from for me. And you know, I think I'm not surprised that I haven't got stubby fingers to this day. Because
See, that and Punch Out was a button mash for me. Yeah. When you had to try and get up.
I will. It was an honourable mention, I think, from the PlayStation episode because International Track and Field in 95, 96 on PS1. I played the fucking load of. I don't think I played it on the NES, but I certainly played it on the PlayStation.
See, for me, it was between that and the Master System did California Games.
I was about to say, was California Games in there?
And I hate to say it, they did it better.
Probably did, mate.
California Games did, yeah, definitely.
They did it better. Hogan's Alley, which was a light gun game.
Yeah.
Super Pitfall.
Yeah, the Indiana Jones ripoff.
The Indiana Jones ripoff, which was first introduced on the Atari, which is where I got it from. And interestingly, they called it Super Pitfall before the SNES actually came out. So this was... It was just Pitfall. Ghosts and Goblins.
The classic, Capcom classic,
Bubble Bobble.
Yeah.
There was quite a lot of those style puzzly games, right, where you are sort of sitting in the centre of a map and shoot something and fucking try and
match the colours of
match
three
the
or
colours
something,
or do this or break the thing. They were immensely popular for a time.
They were.
Bubble Bobble was a fucking good one.
I think I preferred that sort of game for this type of platform more than anything else.
Yeah, really?
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Qbert.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Home Alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played Home Alone then.
Which interesting you say about the Game Boy. It's probably more the Game Boy for me, but again I played it first on the NES.
Okay.
Dr. Mario, Paperboy.
Yes, of course. Yes.
I think that was possibly a Commodore game.
Oh, right.
I don't know if it was. I might be misremembering.
I think it has been on earlier iterations.
If it was earlier and I'm right, I might be right, but I don't know if I am. I think
the NES was more of an arcade port for it, wasn't it? Yeah.
If I'm wrong, then I played it on the NES.
Right.
But I have strong memories of
I
Paperboy.
just love traversing the map and all of a sudden he just falls over.
Yes.
Yes. Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
Yes.
Isn't it interesting how Legend of Zelda and Legend of Zelda 2 didn't make any of our lists?
This is one of the coulda, shoulda, woulda kind of games. I just felt like Mario Brothers, Zelda.
I think
I'll be honest, I got into Zelda very much later.
Everybody knows them. I wanted to kind of steer clear of them, even though it was an integral part of my childhood.
Again, if I was thinking about this through like me, like old Wayne's eyes, I might have picked a Zelda on there. But I'm thinking about this through 8-year-old me.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah,
Zelda was too big for me.
Yeah.
Right, I would have played that and been like, I don't know where the fuck to go.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
It was not.
It was complex.
It's complex. Well, of course it was. And Zelda 2, like these are difficult, like more advanced games. I would probably say, but like for kid me, too much. But legendary games, yeah.
Wasn't there two versions of the cartridge? Like one was gold and one was like
it
the normal
gold
standard
version.
grey or something.
The
Yeah,
old version is like gold dust these days. Ha-ha. So, Excite Bike.
Yes, I remember that.
You remember that one? Yeah. Spider-Man: Return of the Sinister Six.
Yes,
Don't know that one.
Okay. Golf, just standard NES Golf. WrestleMania Challenge, WWF WrestleMania Challenge.
I forgot to put that on the list. WrestleMania, yes. Good shout, sir.
The NES had some fucking good wrestling
They
games,
did.
mate. And the
Yeah.
SNES, mate. Some good wrestling games.
I mean, you look back on them, they're not as great now, but when you were that age, you were
They were
like...
amazing.
It was the bee's knees.
This is it, because I didn't have Sky at the time, so I couldn't really follow WWF at the time, but my friends at school would talk about it, and then, you know, actually getting to play as Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior, it was the nuts nuts
Yeah, it
back
was
then. Come
incredible.
on, it was...
all these great characters in a computer game.
Incredible.
Hell, man. Prince of Persia.
Fuck, what
No,
game?
I never played on the SNES. I think I played on the PC,
Do you
that
know
one.
what? Yeah, you think you're right. I was a SNES Prince of Persia player. I don't think I played it on the NES. But yeah, another legendary game.
Yeah. Star Trek Next Generation.
Never
I
played
know
it.
it, never played it.
Good but bad.
Okay.
Probably if I revisit it now, I think, oh, Jesus Christ. And Kirby's Adventure.
Of course, Kirby, yes.
So there's a lot of legendary games that you've busted out there, and it's really just a fascinating thing, and it's a wonderful thing how these lists are so very subjective, right? Because like if we were thinking about it critically, a lot of those would be in the top 5.
Right. Yeah, this is the thing. Yeah,
right,
that's why they're all there.
Yeah,
But I couldn't leave them out.
But in all honesty, I couldn't tell you that I played some of those games and enjoyed them as much as the like Nintendo World Cup.
No,
like
this
I
is
did.
it, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Which absolutely, you stand that next to like 5 or 6 of those, doesn't stand up anywhere near as well. But 8-year-old me, I played the shit out of that.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
But you,
So,
you gravitate to what you're comfortable with and what you
Yeah, man, it's like what did you play and what did you enjoy and what was amazing?
Absolutely. I mean, I could have chopped and changed so much on that, but like you said,
Yeah.
it's going back to what you try and remember at that age, and that's what stood out for me on mine. So that's what exactly the
Yes,
same as
mate,
outcome as yours, mate.
I hope we stirred some memories in the listeners. So
Yeah, too right.
that's it.
So yeah, guys, thank you so much for coming on and doing that.
Thank you.
So we've got to have you back for SNES and Game Boy, right?
I'm
Absolutely,
in for
yeah.
it, mate. Just
Nice.
sign me up, buddy. I'm there.
Thank you, guys. So we'll end it there, guys. If you like what you listen to, follow us on Facebook at the M.T.V.B podcast, or on Instagram at M.T.V.B podcast, or on TikTok at M.T.V.B podcast 197. I'm joined by...
H.
I'm Wayne from the Bored Stupid podcast.
Guys, if you like your board games and other awesome stuff, please go Board Stupid A listen. Guys, thank you very much for coming on. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you
very much, guys. Good night.
Good night.